This is a compilation of over 2 hours of every Batman explained, so sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn. Let's kick things off with every Batman explained in 19 minutes. Batman has been reinvented so many times that people forget there's one version everything else is built on. One Bruce Wayne, one baseline. Every darker, weirder, or more broken Batman either copies him, twists him, or deliberately rejects him. And before we get into the alternate timelines and disaster zones, we need to start with the original, Bruce Wayne. Prime Earth Batman is the default setting for the entire myth. He's the template, the benchmark, the guy every other Batman gets measured against whether they like it or not. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out, because this version isn't just iconic, he's the reason the symbol works at all. His origin is simple and brutal. Bruce watches Thomas and Martha Wayne get murdered in Crime Alley, and that moment literally turns a child's life into a lifelong war on crime. No magic, no serum, no powers, just trauma, money, and an obsession so intense it becomes a full-time career. But the important part is what happens after the alley. Bruce doesn't just brood in a cave for a few years and call it a day. He spends years training all over the world, learning martial arts, forensic science, psychology, detective work, tactics, all of it. He comes back as a man who can outfight trained killers, outthink geniuses, and solve cases that would stump entire police departments, which is, not ideal if you're a criminal. That's why Prime Earth Batman matters more than any other version. He's disciplined, emotionally controlled, morally strict, and completely human. The whole point is that he's terrifyingly effective without superpowers, just sheer will and preparation. Every other Batman, from the funniest to the most deranged, is basically reacting to this guy, and that baseline is about to get messier, because once you understand the original, the knockoffs, successors, and nightmare versions start making a lot more sense. Bruce Wayne. This is Batman at his most brutal, because he's not in his prime anymore. He's 55, he's been out of the game for a decade, and he only comes back because Gotham has gotten so rotten that retirement stops being an option. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out. This isn't the sleek, hyper-competent Bruce who always seems 3 moves ahead. This is a man who quit after Jason Todd died, buried the cape, and spent years letting the city eat itself. Now he's back, heavier, angrier, and way more worn down than the usual version. And that changes everything. In The Dark Knight Returns, Bruce doesn't feel like a superhero. He feels like an exhausted veteran who never actually learned how to leave the war. He's still dangerous, still disciplined, still terrifying in a fight, but now every move looks expensive. Every punch feels like it costs him something. That's the whole point. The obvious version of Batman is this unstoppable machine, the guy who can outthink anybody and outfight everybody. This Bruce is what happens when that machine keeps running long after the parts start breaking down. He's got the scar tissue, the bitterness, the obsessive need to keep going, and zero interest in pretending things are okay. Great, add that to the list. That's why his clashes with Gotham's authorities hit so hard. They don't see a noble protector. They see an aging radical in a mask. A man who thinks the world has decayed past the point where normal heroics matter. And when Superman shows up, it turns into the ultimate collision of ideals. One man still believes in order and restraint. The other believes the whole system has already failed, and somebody has to get ugly about it. That's the dark genius of this Bruce. He isn't trying to inspire hope. He's trying to prove that he can still force the city to fear him, even if his body is older and the world is worse. It's Batman as a last stand argument, not a symbol of what Gotham could be, but a threat to what Gotham already became. And that makes the next one even weirder, because after Bruce gets this grim and broken, the mantle gets handed to somebody who was never built for it in the first place. Jean-Paul Valley. Jean-Paul Valley looks like Batman upgraded him in a lab somewhere, and that is exactly why he's terrifying. Before you shrug him off as just another armored replacement, hear me out. He's not a normal man wearing a batsuit. He's a cult weapon with a costume problem. And when Bruce breaks, Jean-Paul doesn't just fill the gap. He warps it. Jean-Paul, better known as Azrael, was raised and programmed by the Order of Saint-Dumas from childhood. That means his identity was fractured before he ever stepped into Gotham. The cult built him to obey, to kill, and to hear the system in his head like it was a divine hotline. Great start. Really healthy upbringing. So, when Bane snaps Bruce Wayne's back during Nightfall, Jean-Paul becomes Batman. On paper, that sounds like a cool emergency backup. In practice, it's a nightmare. Bruce wanted someone to protect Gotham. Jean-Paul decides Gotham needs to be punished. He starts redesigning Batman into something harsher, more violent, and way less interested in restraint. And the suit change tells you everything. Jean-Paul doesn't just swap the cape for a few gadgets. He turns Batman into a walking weapons platform. The armored Asbat suit gets bladed wings, a shuriken launcher, a flamethrower, and enough sharp metal to make a hardware store nervous. It looks impressive at first glance. Then you realize it's basically a panic attack with a utility belt. Here's the thing. The more effective Jean-Paul looks, the less Batman he becomes. Bruce built Batman around fear, detective work, and control. Jean-Paul builds him around escalation. Every problem becomes a combat problem. Every mistake becomes a sin. Every sin becomes something the mask should cut out of existence, which is, not ideal. And the worst part is that the cult never really leaves him alone. The system keeps trying to seize control of his mind, yanking him back toward the violent programming Saint-Dumas buried in him years ago. So even when Jean-Paul thinks he's making his own choices, he's constantly fighting a second voice inside his head that wants him to stop pretending and start slaughtering. That's what makes Jean-Paul so unsettling. He isn't an evil copy of Batman. He's a broken replacement that almost works. And that's way scarier, because if you only looked at the armor, you'd think Gotham finally got an upgrade. But underneath it, you've got a cult-trained killer slowly turning the symbol into a weapon. And if you think that's a bad Batman, wait until you meet the version who's evil for family reasons. That one gets personal fast. Thomas Wayne. Thomas Wayne is what happens when Batman is the parent instead of the child. And that swap makes everything colder. Before you brush that off as just another evil alternate universe, hear me out. In Flashpoint, Bruce dies in Crime Alley, and Thomas is the one left behind with the wound. Same street, same gun, completely different monster. On the surface, he is still Batman. Same ears, same cape, same obsession with Gotham. But his version of the mission is basically grief with a badge and a body count. He kills criminals, he uses the city's power structures, he runs Wayne casinos as cover, and he commands a privatized police force to keep Gotham in line. That is not a vigilante. That is a very angry CEO in a bat costume. And honestly, it makes a twisted kind of sense. Thomas was a doctor before all this, a guy who believed in saving lives. Then Bruce gets murdered, and that faith just snaps. So now, instead of trying to stop the cycle, he becomes the cycle. Criminal walks in, criminal does not walk out. Great. Add that to the list of parenting advice nobody should ever need. But here's the kicker. Thomas is one of the few Batman variants who can actually weaponize legitimacy. He is not lurking in alleyways with homemade gadgets and trauma issues. He has money, access, and enough status to turn the city's systems into a blunt instrument. He does not just scare bad guys. He controls the room before they even get there. That is a much scarier upgrade than stronger armor. That's what makes Thomas Wayne so disturbing. He is not just Bruce with a gun. He is Bruce's father, carrying the same loss, but letting it curdle into control. He does not just fight Gotham's crime problem. He tries to own Gotham's response to crime. Like the whole city is something he can finally keep from being taken again. That is the real horror here. The Batman symbol, which usually means fear aimed at criminals, becomes fear aimed at everybody. And the emotional punch lands because Thomas feels less like a superhero and more like a man who never recovered. He is devastated, furious, and fully convinced that mercy is a luxury he cannot afford. The result is a Batman who protects people, sure, but in the same way a locked vault protects valuables. You are safe inside it, and you are also trapped, which is, not ideal. He is trying to build a wall so nothing else ever gets stolen from him again, and that wall does not care who gets crushed underneath it. Flashpoint really asks the darkest version of the Batman question. What if the person in the cowl had more authority, more resources, and zero patience left? Turns out, no, that does not make him better. It makes him terrifying. And that's before we get to Dick Grayson, who proves you can wear the cowl and still not turn into a walking disaster. Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson becoming Batman should not work this well. And yet, after Bruce's apparent death in Final Crisis, he slips into the cowl and somehow makes the entire city feel lighter without becoming less dangerous. That's the magic of Batman. Reborn. You get Batman with a pulse, a joke, and enough social intelligence to actually function in a room. Then he gets paired with Damian Wayne, which is where things get really good. Dick Grayson isn't just the other Batman. He is the Batman who remembers people are people. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out. Bruce built Batman around fear, distance, and total control. Dick builds him around trust, timing, and just enough charm to make it look easy. He still patrols Gotham. He still fights killers, freaks, and lunatics in expensive costumes. But he does it like someone who knows how to talk to a cop without treating the exchange like a hostage negotiation. Batman, but warm. The official setup is simple. Bruce is gone, Gotham is unstable, and Dick steps into the role because someone has to keep the city from eating itself alive. What makes his run stand out is that he does not try to be Bruce. He leans into being Dick Grayson, which is exactly why it works. He is more public-facing than Bruce ever is. He cooperates with law enforcement instead of treating them like a nuisance. He works with other heroes instead of acting like a suspicious gargoyle with a utility belt. He smiles in public, cracks jokes, and actually looks like somebody who could walk into a room full of allies and not make everyone immediately regret the meeting. Wild concept, I know, and that difference matters. Dick's Batman does not feel weaker because he is more open. He feels smarter. He knows when to lead from the front and when to let other people in. He knows Gotham does not just need intimidation, it needs coordination. That is a huge shift because Bruce's version of Batman is so often defined by isolation that seeing the mantle used as part of a network feels almost illegal. But the real reason people love this era is Damian. Damian Wayne starts as a little menace, a genuine little menace, trained by assassins, convinced he already knows everything, and fully prepared to act like everyone else is beneath him. So naturally, Dick does not respond by trying to break him down with fear. He mentors him with patience, empathy, and just enough dry humor to keep Damian from combusting. It is the kind of dynamic that makes you realize how much Batman and Robin stories have been starving for actual emotional intelligence, and Damian responds to it. He does not instantly become soft or cheerful, because that would be weird, but he does start becoming better. Dick gives him structure without crushing him. He gives him correction without humiliation. He basically tells him, you can be more than your worst training, which for Damian is probably the first decent parenting advice he has ever heard. That is why this Batman hits so hard. Dick Grayson proves the mantle does not have to be miserable to be effective. He can be Batman and still be human. He can inspire people without looming over them like a lawsuit in a cape. And in a franchise built on trauma, that almost feels rebellious. Of course, if Dick Grayson shows that Batman can be hopeful, Terry McGinnis is where the mantle gets thrown even farther into the future. Terry McGinnis. Every Batman we've talked about so far has one thing in common. They're all shaped by something terrible that happened to them. Terry McGinnis is different. He's shaped by something that was handed to him. It's the year 2039. Bruce Wayne is old. Not graying at the temples old, but physically cannot wear the suit anymore old. He's retired, alone in Wayne Manor, and Gotham has moved on without him. Except it hasn't really. The city just got worse. It renamed itself Neo-Gotham, slapped neon on everything, and let megacorporations replace the mob as the ruling class. Same corruption, shinier packaging. Enter Terry McGinnis, a teenager with a temper and a dead father. Terry stumbles into Bruce's life, discovers the Batcave, and essentially forces his way into the role. Bruce doesn't want a successor. He doesn't think anyone can do what he did. But Terry steals the suit anyway, because that's exactly the kind of reckless move Bruce Wayne would have made at his age. And Bruce recognizes it. Reluctantly, painfully, he starts mentoring the kid through an earpiece while Terry does the actual punching. Here's what makes Terry fascinating. He's not driven by trauma in the way Bruce was. His father's death matters to him. Absolutely. But Terry's Batman isn't built on a foundation of grief and obsession. It's built on inheritance. Bruce gives him the tools, the training, the name. Terry has to figure out what to do with all of it. He's essentially asking the question that none of the other Batmen ever had to ask. What does Batman mean when it's not your idea? And the Gotham he's protecting looks nothing like the one we know. Neo-Gotham is full cyberpunk. Hover cars, AI surveillance networks, holographic advertisements selling you things you didn't know existed. The criminals have upgraded too. We're talking genetic splicing gangs, corporate assassins, and technology so advanced that a Batarang feels like bringing a slingshot to a drone war. Terry's Batsuit reflects this. It's a full-body piece of future tech. Sleek black with a red bat symbol, capable of flight, enhanced strength, cloaking, and about 40 other things Bruce's original suit could never do. It's less guy in a cape and more walking weapons platform that happens to have a teenager inside it. But the real escalation happens in the comics. DC officially brought Terry into mainline continuity, and the Batman Beyond. Neo Year series takes things to a genuinely dark place. Bruce Wayne is murdered, not retired, not missing, dead. Terry has to investigate who killed his mentor while simultaneously discovering that Neo-Gotham itself might be the problem. The city's AI infrastructure isn't just monitoring citizens, it's actively dangerous, hiding secrets that go way deeper than street-level crime. Corporate-scale corruption doesn't even begin to cover it. We're talking about an entire city that might be working against the people living in it, and Terry has to handle all of this without Bruce in his ear anymore. No safety net, no old man telling him which wire to cut, just a kid in a suit that was built for someone else, trying to live up to a legacy that might be literally impossible to match. That's the thing about Terry McGinnis. He's not trying to avenge his parents, he's not consumed by rage or broken by grief, he's just a guy who inherited a responsibility and chose to carry it, which honestly might be the hardest version of Batman to be. Everyone else had something pushing them. Terry just has a choice, every single night. But if Terry represents what happens when Batman's legacy lands in the right hands, the next entry shows what happens when it falls into the worst possible ones. The Batman who laughs. Batman without restraint is already terrifying. Batman without restraint and with Joker-level level cruelty is a full-blown disaster. Earth 22 gave us exactly that, and it starts with Bruce Wayne doing the one thing he never does, killing the Joker, then getting infected by a nanotoxin that slowly turns his genius into something filthy. By the end, he is the worst kind of nightmare. Intelligent, patient, and completely done playing fair. Before you roll your eyes and call it edgy nonsense, hear me out, because this isn't just evil Batman. It is Batman's mind, Batman's planning, Batman's obsession with pressure points, all filtered through the Joker's sadism. The result is a man who can outthink almost anybody while enjoying every second of it. Earth 22. Batman starts out with the usual setup. Joker has pushed Gotham too far. Bruce snaps. And instead of holding the line, he kills him. Simple enough. But the Joker had been planning for that exact outcome, because of course he had. The clown leaves behind a nanotoxin that infects Bruce and slowly rewrites him from the inside, fusing his intelligence with Joker-like madness and cruelty. That slow burn matters. He does not instantly become a cartoon villain. He becomes worse. He gets time to think, and that is where the horror lives, because Batman's biggest strength has always been restraint. He studies you, predicts you, corners you, and still chooses not to cross the line. This version crosses it, then keeps walking. He has the same tactical mind that normally keeps Gotham safe, but now every calculation is aimed at humiliation, infection, and psychological collapse. Basically, if regular Batman is a precision tool, this guy is a precision tool that got dropped into a bleach drum full of razor blades. Once he fully becomes the Batman who laughs, he stops being a rogue Batman and starts becoming a dark multiverse threat on a cosmic scale. He leads the Dark Knights. He works with Barbados. He tears through worlds with the calm of somebody reorganizing a filing cabinet. That's the thing that makes him so nasty. He does not rant like the Joker. He does not broodingly glare like Batman. He combines both into this sick little package that smiles while dismantling your entire plan, and he has the tools to make that mean something. The dark metal visor lets him peer through realities and see what people fear, what they want, and where they'll break. That is a disgusting advantage because Batman already wins by knowing you. This version knows you across universes. He understands the shape of your weakness before you do. Cool, that's also a thing that happened. Then there's the Robin Pit, which might be the most messed up part of the whole concept. He can corrupt children into groblins, twisted little servants that turn Batman's mentorship tradition into pure body horror. Robin was supposed to mean hope, training, and second chances. Here it becomes a factory for little monsters. Great, add that to the list. And that's why he works as a villain better than most evil Batman ideas. He is not just strong, he is Batman's entire method stripped of conscience. He still plans like Batman, still stalks like Batman, still understands fear like Batman, but now every one of those skills is pointed at making the world uglier. There is zero heroism left in the symbol, just the shape of it. If you think that is the ceiling for Batman horror, wait until you see a version so far ahead in time that even the cape looks like ancient history. Batman 1 million. Batman 1 million is what happens when the idea of Batman stops being a man and turns into a civilization. And somehow, DC made that sound normal. Before you laugh it off, this is the Batman of the 853rd century, living in the year 85,300, which is so far ahead it basically counts as another species. He's not just fighting crime anymore, he's preserving the entire concept of Batman across millennia. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out, Batman 1 million. He appears in DC 1 million, and he's the most distant future Batman in this whole lineup by a ridiculous margin. Not future as in slightly upgraded suit. Future as in humanity has had 84,000 plus years to make things weird, and Batman is still here doing Batman stuff. That alone is hilarious, in a very bleak way. But here's the kicker. He doesn't protect Gotham. He oversees Pluto as a prison world. That's the huge leap. Batman goes from rooftop vigilante to something closer to a cosmic warden. Same obsession, totally different scale. Instead of stalking alleyways, he's managing an interplanetary penal system, which is not exactly the job description Alfred probably had in mind. The man who once punched muggers in an alley is now basically an institution with a cowl, and it makes perfect sense in the most Batman way possible, because if you stretch the character far enough into the future, he stops looking like one guy with gadgets and starts looking like a function the universe cannot get rid of. Crime still exists, rebellion still exists, chaos still shows up like an unpaid bill, so Batman is still needed, only now the problem is so massive that it takes a civilization to keep up with it. His Robin is a robot called the Toy Wonder, and that detail does a ton of work. It tells you the Batman-Robin partnership is still alive, but it has been translated into the language of the future. No Cape Kid swinging from rooftops. Now it's an artificial sidekick built to support, monitor, and keep Batman grounded, which is, a pretty serious upgrade from small child in bright underwear. And that's the really dark part. Even after 85,300 years, Batman still needs a Robin. Not because he misses having company, because the job still has a way of swallowing him whole if nobody is there to pull him him back. So the toy wonder isn't just a futuristic gimmick, it's proof that Batman's greatest weakness never changed. He can survive anything, except becoming the kind of force that no longer needs a conscience. That's what makes Batman 1,000,000 such a perfect final beat for this whole video. He's not the last Batman because he's the strongest. He's the last Batman because the idea outlived the man. Somewhere between crime, war, and the collapse of ordinary time, Batman became a legacy so big, it stopped belonging to Bruce Wayne alone. And honestly, that's the most Batman thing imaginable. If you asked most people who the first Robin was, they'd say Dick Grayson. They'd be wrong. The Robin identity has been worn by 6 different people across DC history, and the very first one will genuinely surprise you. Today, I'm breaking down every single Robin, what made them unique, and why some of them ended up way more tragic than others. Starting with the one nobody ever talks about, Bruce Wayne. Before Batman ever existed, before the cape, before the cowl, before any of it, Bruce Wayne himself used the Robin identity. That's right, the original Robin wasn't some orphaned acrobat or street kid from Gotham. It was Batman. Here's the thing. As a young man training under a private investigator named Harvey Harris, Bruce needed a way to work cases without revealing who he actually was. Wow. So he threw together a bright costume and adopted an alias. And that alias was Robin. He chose the name himself, inspired by Robin Hood, which is, a slightly on the nose inspiration for a future vigilante, but the kid clearly had a theme in mind from day one. This was revealed in Detective Comics number 226, published in 1955. Now, Dick Grayson's debut in issue 38 came back in 1940, so Dick appeared in print first. But in terms of in-universe canon, Bruce's time as Robin happened earlier chronologically. So, within the fiction itself, Bruce Wayne is technically the first Robin, not Dick, not anyone else. Bruce. His time as Robin was brief. Most casual fans have zero idea it ever happened. Even dedicated comic readers missed this one, but it completely reframes the entire Robin legacy. Bruce didn't just mentor Robins, he was one. He understood what the identity meant because he lived it firsthand, and that's what makes the Robin mantle so much bigger than any single person. But the Robin that everyone actually remembers, the one who defined the role for over 4 decades, that's a completely different story. Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson is the Robin. Not the first Robin chronologically, if you want to get technical about it, but the Robin that defined what Robin even means. And his debut didn't just introduce a sidekick, it doubled Batman's comic sales overnight. Detective Comics number 38 dropped in April 1940, and the second readers saw this kid in the red and yellow costume, Batman went from a dark, brooding solo act to a cultural phenomenon. Younger readers finally had someone to latch onto, and DC had a money printer. Here's the thing about Dick's origin, though. It's basically Batman's origin wearing a leotard. Dick was a circus acrobat performing with his parents, John and Mary Grayson, as part of the Flying Graysons. One night, mobster Tony Zuko sabotaged their trapeze because the circus owner refused to pay protection money. Dick watched his parents fall to their deaths mid-performance. Bruce Wayne, a man intimately familiar with watching your parents die in front of you, took the kid in, and just like that, the most iconic partnership in comics was born. What's genuinely wild is how long Dick held the role. He was Robin continuously from 1940 to 1984, 44 years. That's not a tenure, that's a career. He even had solo adventures in Star-Spangled Comics from issue 65 through 130 between 1947 and 1952. The kid was moonlighting. Now, his exact age when he became Robin is a complete mess depending on which decade you're reading. Early comics put him around 8 years old. Nightwing number 0 from 2012 says 16. Most writers split the difference somewhere around 10 to 13, which is the generally accepted range. 70 years of continuity will do that to a character's birth certificate, but Dick didn't stay a kid forever. Through the 1970s and 80s, he co-founded the New Teen Titans and started pulling away from Batman's shadow. By the time he officially gave up the Robin mantle in Tales of the Teen Titans number 44, Dick had clearly outgrown the short pants. So, he became Nightwing, and that transition is considered one of the most successful character progressions in DC history. He didn't get replaced. He graduated. Every Robin that came after him inherited the template Dick built. The costume, the banter, the dynamic with Batman, the expectation that Robin is both partner and emotional anchor. Dick Grayson established all of it, but his successor? That kid had a very different relationship with the audience. One that ended with a phone call. Jason Todd is the Robin that DC literally let fans murder through a phone poll, and the margin was 72 votes. But we'll get to that. When Dick Grayson graduated to Nightwing, Batman needed a new Robin fast. So in 1983, Jason Todd debuted in Batman number 357, and his original origin was basically Dick Grayson again. Circus acrobat, dead parents, tragic orphan. He even had strawberry blonde hair that he dyed black to look more like Dick. Just because apparently the goal was to photocopy the first Robin and hope nobody noticed. Readers noticed. The post-crisis reboot reinvented him completely. New Jason wasn't a circus kid, he was a homeless street orphan caught stealing the tires off the Batmobile. Batman finds this feral teenager teenager dismantling his car in crime alley and instead of calling the police, decides to adopt him, as you do. But Jason wasn't Dick Grayson. He was impulsive, reckless, and violent in ways that genuinely concerned Batman. He'd use excessive force, ignore orders, escalate situations that didn't need escalating. Batman eventually suspended him from duty entirely. His own Robin, benched. Then came a death in the family. The Joker captured Jason, beat him with a crowbar, and locked him in a warehouse rigged with a bomb. Batman arrived too late. Here's the kicker. Non-DC set up a 1-900 phone number and let readers vote on whether Jason lived or died. 5,343 votes to kill him. 5,271 to save him. Hey America, should we murder this child? The child dies. Jason stayed dead for over 15 years. Then, in 2005, Under the Hood brought him back. Superboy Prime's reality-altering punch restored him to life, and Talia al Ghul used a Lazarus Pit to restore his mind, which is great, except the Lazarus Pit has a well-documented tendency to make people violently unstable. And then he found out Batman never killed the Joker for what happened. That was the breaking point. His mentor, his father figure, let the man who beat him to death with a crowbar continue breathing. Jason became the Red Hood, a lethal vigilante who rejected everything Batman stood for. No mercy, no code. If you deserved to die, you died. The beautiful tragedy of Jason Todd is that he went from a derivative copycat nobody liked to a street kid with genuine edge, to a martyr, to a resurrection story about betrayal and broken trust. Contemporary DC has softened him into a nuanced anti-hero with a tense but partially mended relationship with the Bat family. He's still got the guns. He's still willing to pull the trigger, but he shows up to family dinners now, which is Progress.DC created a Robin so unpopular that fans voted to kill him by the thinnest margin imaginable, then spent 2 decades turning that failure into one of the most compelling characters in Batman's orbit. But if Jason's story is about what happens when Batman's Robin experiment goes wrong, the next Robin is what happens when it goes exactly right. Tim Drake, a 9-year-old, solved Batman's greatest secret, not because he had connections or stumbled into the Batcave. Tim Drake watched years of Batman and Robin footage, cross-referenced Dick Grayson's acrobatic style with a move he'd seen at Haley's Circus as a kid, and worked backwards until he had Bruce Wayne's identity figured out. He was 9. Most 9-year-olds can't find their own shoes. Here's what makes Tim completely different from every Robin before him. Dick became Robin because his parents were murdered. Jason became Robin because Batman found him on the streets. Tim became Robin because he decided Batman needed one. Nobody recruited this kid. He looked at the situation, analyzed it like a case file, and concluded that Batman without a Robin was a Batman spiraling out of control. After Jason's death, Bruce was getting reckless, violent, crossing lines he'd never crossed before. Tim saw it happening, so he tracked down Dick Grayson and tried to convince the original Robin to come back. When Dick refused, Tim took matters into his own hands. He infiltrated a hostage situation wearing the Robin suit before he'd officially earned it. Alfred and Dick were the ones who actually put him in the costume for that first outing, but the fact that this kid threw himself into danger not for glory, but because someone had to act, tells you everything about Tim Drake. He's not the kid who wants the spotlight, he's the kid who wants the job done right. Even after proving himself, Batman didn't immediately accept him. Bruce put Tim through extensive training before officially confirming him as Robin in Batman number 442, the longest trial period of any Robin by a significant margin. Batman was terrified of getting another kid killed, and Tim had to earn it every single day. His defining trait is his detective ability, which multiple storylines present as equaling or potentially exceeding Batman's own skills. This is the intellectual Robin, the one who thinks first and punches second, the one who could probably solve your murder before the police knew you were dead. Of course, because this is a Robin, tragedy caught up. Tim's father, Jack Drake, was murdered by Captain Boomerang during Identity Crisis, because apparently being orphaned is a contractual requirement for the position. But the moment that truly defines Tim came after Bruce's apparent death during Final Crisis. Every member of the Bat family accepted Bruce was gone. Every single one, except Tim. He abandoned the Robin identity, became Red Robin, and searched the globe for his missing mentor while everyone told him he was in denial, and he was right. The same instincts that let a 9-year-old crack Batman's identity told him something was wrong. He trusted those instincts over literally everyone around him, and he found Bruce Wayne. That's Tim Drake, the Robin who wasn't chosen by tragedy or bloodline, the Robin who chose himself, and proved everyone wrong when it mattered most. If you think that's impressive, yikes, wait until you meet the Robin who was literally raised by assassins. Stephanie Brown. Every Robin we've talked about so far got recruited by Batman. Dick was taken in after tragedy. Jason was pulled off the streets. Tim Tim literally had to convince Batman he was needed, but Stephanie Brown? She showed up uninvited, made her own costume, and started fighting crime specifically to take down her own father. Batman didn't want her there, he actively tried to stop her, and that's what makes her story so different from every other Robin. She first appeared in 1992 as the Spoiler, a vigilante identity she built from scratch to sabotage her dad, the Clue Master, a C-list Batman villain whose whole gimmick was being a bargain bin Riddler. He eventually decided to commit crimes without leaving clues, which Stephanie then spoiled by leaving clues for Batman herself. While the other Robins were being mentored and carefully guided into the role, Stephanie was freelancing in Gotham with zero support and a whole lot of disapproval. Batman told her to stop. She didn't stop. For over a decade, she operated in the Robin supporting cast, dated Tim Drake, clashed with Batman, and generally refused to go away. Then, in 2004, Tim temporarily stepped down, and Batman gave the mantle to Stephanie, the first girl to officially serve as Robin in mainstream DC continuity. Historic moment, she lasted about 2 issues before things went sideways. Batman fired her for not following orders. After getting fired, Stephanie stole one of Batman's secret contingency plans for dismantling Gotham's organized crime. Her goal was to execute it herself and prove him wrong. Reasonable motivation, catastrophic execution. Because the entire plan hinged on coordination with a criminal contact named Matches Malone. Stephanie didn't know Matches Malone was Batman. Nobody told her, so she activated a massive operation requiring Batman's direct involvement, except Batman wasn't at the table. The result was War Games, a crossover where Gotham's criminal underworld erupted into gang warfare. Stephanie was captured by Black Mask, tortured, and depicted dying from her injuries, which is, not ideal. But here's the part that still makes people angry. DC editorial had decided Stephanie was going to die before the storyline was even written. Her death wasn't a narrative consequence, it was a predetermined outcome the story was built backward to justify. And then former DC publisher Dan DiDio suggested Stephanie was never really a Robin, despite appearing in the costume, in published comics, that DC sold to people for money. I don't know what to tell you. Eventually, Stephanie was revealed to have survived and came back as Batgirl, where Brian Q. Miller's run finally gave her room to grow into a capable, complex hero with her own identity outside the shadow of being the Robin who failed. But the question lingers, did she fail, or was she never given a real chance to succeed? If you think Stephanie's story is complicated, wait until you meet the Robin who was literally raised by assassins and trained to kill before he could drive a car. Damian Wayne. Every Robin we've talked about so far was adopted, recruited, or stumbled into the role. Damian Wayne was engineered for it, literally. Now he is Bruce Wayne's only biological son, grown in an artificial womb, genetically perfected to be the ultimate warrior. His mother is Talia al Ghul. His grandfather is Ra's al Ghul. And the entire point of his existence was to merge the Wayne and Al Ghul bloodlines into a single perfect heir, which is, not a normal way to start a family. For the first 10 years of his life, Talia kept him inside the League of Assassins, where he trained in martial arts, weapons mastery, and actual assassination techniques from the moment he could walk. By 10 years old, Damian Wayne was a fully operational killer. He had genuine contempt for human life, viewed mercy as weakness. And then his mother dropped him on Bruce Wayne's doorstep specifically to cause chaos. Here's your son. He knows 14 ways to kill you with a pencil. Or good luck. The character technically first appeared as an unnamed infant in the 1987 graphic novel Batman, Son of the Demon, but Grant Morrison fully reintroduced him in Batman number 655 in 2006, and that's where the real story begins. Damian showed up arrogant, violent, and completely unwilling to follow Batman's rules. He didn't understand why Batman refused to kill. He thought Tim Drake was beneath him. He thought everyone was beneath him. But here's where it gets interesting. Damian didn't become Robin under Bruce. When Bruce was believed dead after Final Crisis, Dick Grayson took over as Batman and chose Damian as his Robin. And Dick's approach was completely different. Where Bruce would have tried to control Damian through authority, Dick used patience. He mentored. He let Damian gradually choose Batman's ethical code rather than forcing it on him. That distinction matters, because Damian's entire arc is about choice, and it's the most dramatic moral transformation of any Robin. Not close. This is a kid raised from birth to be a weapon, who had zero framework for love or family, slowly discovering that he actually cares about his father, that he has genuine brotherhood with Dick, Tim, and Jason, that the no-kill rule isn't weakness, it's the hardest thing you can do. Morrison even established a future timeline in Batman number 666, where Damian eventually becomes Batman himself. His story continues to evolve, and it's far from over. Every Robin represents something different. Dick was the original. Jason was the cautionary tale. Tim was the detective. Stephanie was the one who never got a fair chance. But Damian? Damian is the proof that the Robin legacy actually works. that you can take someone built from the ground up to be everything Batman fights against and turn them into a hero. Not through force, through family. That's what Robin has always been about. Batman has a rogues gallery packed with villains, but none of them come close to the pure chaos embodied by the clown prince of crime. The Joker isn't just a villain, he's the mirror that reflects every fear Batman has about himself. And understanding him means understanding why Batman's entire crusade might be built on a lie. Starting with the most important villain, first, the Joker. The Joker is Batman's philosophical opposite, and that's not hyperbole. He debuted in Batman #1 in spring 1940 as a theatrical killer who took genuine glee in finding creative ways to murder people for his own amusement. From day one, this wasn't just another criminal to punch and lock up. This was an antithesis to everything Batman represents. Batman is order. The Joker is chaos. Batman uses fear as a tool for justice. The Joker uses violence as an end in itself. Here's the thing. The Joker isn't actually random. The paradox of chaos theory is that chaos contains order, and the Joker embodies that perfectly. He's not throwing punches at random. He's deliberately rejecting meaning-making systems themselves. The Killing Joke established his origin as a failing comedian who lost his wife and unborn child, and that tragedy broke him in the exact opposite direction from how Bruce Wayne's tragedy broke him. Where Bruce found purpose in protecting Gotham, the Joker found liberation in proving that nothing matters. It's nihilism with a body count, and that body count is staggering. The Joker has one of the highest kill counts among Batman's street-level villains, but the violence is never random. It's always theatrical, always communicative, always an attempt to impose his worldview onto others. He kills to prove a point, to demonstrate that moral systems are arbitrary, that one bad day can turn anyone into him. Every murder is a philosophical argument delivered through carnage. The Joker forces Batman to confront whether his entire methodology is fundamentally naive in a universe containing absolute chaos. The Joker is Batman's shadow self. Both experience tragedy, both obsess over their response to it. But where Batman imposed order through fear, the Joker imposed chaos through violence. The question neither of them can answer is whether their choice was inevitable or arbitrary. And that's the real horror of the Joker. He's not just Batman's enemy. He's Batman if the coin flip landed differently. But at least the Joker is predictable in his unpredictability. Two-Face takes the concept of random chance and turns it into a religion. Two-Face. Harvey Dent was Gotham's golden boy. Handsome, charming DA, one of Batman's closest allies. Fighting mob corruption through the legal system, then Sal Maroni threw acid in his face during a trial, and the entire left side melted off. That single moment of disfigurement triggered a complete psychological fracture that turned Gotham's White Knight into one of its most dangerous criminals. Here's the thing about Two-Face that nobody talks about. Harvey Dent's entire belief in order and justice was contingent on two things: his self-image and his faith that the universe was fundamentally fair. The moment that acid hit his face, both beliefs died. He couldn't look at himself, and the universe had proven it didn't care about fairness. So he invented a new system, the coin. Two-Face uses a scarred coin to decide everything: crime or charity, murder or mercy. He flips it, reads the result, and claims he's surrendering to pure chance. The coin decides, not Harvey, which means Harvey bears zero moral responsibility for his actions. Genius psychological defense mechanism, except it's all a lie. The coin isn't chance at all. It's a double-headed coin. Both sides show heads. One clean, one scarred. There is no tails. Every single flip is predetermined based on which side lands face up. Harvey acts like he's surrendering control to randomness, but he's actually just created a binary system where the outcome is always one of two predetermined options. Clean side means mercy. Scarred side means violence. He's convinced himself this is fairness, that the coin removes his agency. But he's the one who chose the coin. He's the one who assigns meaning to each side. The randomness is theater. Two-Face represents the duality mirror, the thin line between lawful order and chaotic criminality. He was the White Knight to Batman's Dark Knight, working openly within the system while Batman operated in shadows. But his transformation proves that belief in order can be fragile, breakable. Harvey needed the world to make sense. When it didn't, he shattered. Batman has the same vulnerability. He operates on the assumption that preparation and discipline allow absolute control. Two-Face forces him to see that randomness exists, that disfigurement, tragedy, chaos, all of it can strike regardless of merit. The scarred coin is Harvey's way of distancing his conscience from his crimes. But it's also a mirror for Batman's own refusal to accept that he can't control everything. Two-Face wears his duality on his face. Batman wears his in his soul. But if you think surrendering to chance is disturbing, wait until you hear about the villain who weaponized fear itself into a hallucinogenic toxin that can drive you permanently insane. Scarecrow. Scarecrow is either Batman's most methodical enemy or proof that exposure therapy has some serious side effects. And I can prove it. Most people assume Scarecrow is just another Arkham lunatic, but he's not. Dr. Jonathan Crane is a scientist. Created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane in World's Finest Comics #3, fall 1941, Scarecrow was was inspired by Ichabod Crane from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Lanky build, creepy costume, name borrowed straight from the story. But where Ichabod ran from fear, Jonathan Crane weaponized it. Crane's childhood was a nightmare, abused, bullied, traumatized to the point where fear became his entire world. So he did what any rational person would do, got a PhD in psychology, specialized in phobias, and developed a hallucinogenic toxin capable of inducing instantaneous terror so severe it can trigger heart attacks or trap victims in permanent psychosis. The fear toxin started simple, but got upgraded to the point where it can affect Superman when mixed with kryptonite, literally strong enough to terrify a guy who punches meteors. Here's where it gets weird. Scarecrow has been exposed to his own toxin so many times that he's basically immune to fear. Prolonged exposure rendered him incapable of experiencing terror, except for one thing: Batman. The only fear Jonathan Crane has left is his fear of the Bat, which is, not ideal when your entire obsession revolves around studying and exploiting fear. The psychology reveals antisocial personality disorder, severe obsessive compulsion, and multiple phobias including ornithophobia, fear of crows, and chiroptophobia, fear of bats. So the guy who weaponizes fear is himself terrified of the very symbols he uses. He wears a scarecrow mask but fears crows. He terrorizes Gotham but fears bats. The irony is so thick you could choke on it. But this is what makes Scarecrow the perfect mirror for Batman. Batman uses fear strategically. Criminals see the bat symbol and panic. Fear is a tool for justice. Scarecrow inverts that completely. He uses fear as an end in itself, not to accomplish justice, but to indulge sadistic curiosity about human psychology under extreme duress. Where Batman channels fear into discipline and order, Scarecrow channels fear into pure chaos for entertainment. The distinction matters because Scarecrow represents what happens when the tool becomes the purpose, when obsession with fear transforms from strategic advantage into psychological consumption. Crane doesn't rob banks or seek power. He experiments, he studies, he refines his toxin and tests it on victims to gather data, operating with the cold precision of a scientist conducting research on unwilling subjects. That methodical approach is uncomfortably close to Batman's own discipline and preparation. Scarecrow can't feel fear anymore, but fear is still the only thing that matters to him. He studies it, weaponizes it, builds his entire identity around it. Sound familiar? Batman can't experience his parents' death again, but that trauma defines every single thing he does. Both men are trapped by the thing they claim mastery over. At least Scarecrow only terrorizes Gotham with hallucinogens and not with 1,000 unsolved riddles that make you want to put your head through a wall. The Riddler. Edward Nygma is either Batman's most brilliant adversary or the most fragile ego in Gotham wrapped in a question mark suit. And I can prove it. Created by Bill Finger and Dick Sprang, the Riddler first appeared in Detective Comics number 140 in October 1948. His real name is literally a pun, Edward Nygma, an enigma, a person difficult to understand. But here's the thing, the Riddler's origin story reveals he wasn't some naturally gifted puzzle master. He was a lousy cheater who got interested in puzzles by cheating in a school contest, then escalated from there to bigger leagues and greater challenges. His entire criminal career is built on a foundation of fraud dressed up as genius. The Riddler's psychological profile is fascinating because Batman himself diagnosed it. Fanatic narcissism, egocentrism, and megalomania, crossed with severe obsessive compulsion. With an obsessive need for attention and a genius-level intellect, Nygma is determined to be the cleverest of Gotham's criminals. He doesn't just want to commit crimes, he needs everyone to know he committed them, specifically giving Batman a chance to stop him, in the hopes that Batman will fail, thus proving the Riddler's superior intellect. This only intensifies Nygma's dedication to creating a mystery that would stump even the Dark Knight, even if he had to kill someone to do so. But here's where it gets complicated. There are two interpretations of why the Riddler leaves clues, and both reveal something disturbing about his psychology. The first interpretation is pure narcissistic personality disorder. The Riddler craves admiration and attention, feeling entitled to recognition for his crimes. He wants praise. He wants to be the center of attention. He fundamentally lacks the ability to feel empathy for others. This grandiose narcissist version maintains an inflated sense of his own brilliance at all times. The second interpretation is darker. The Riddler leaves clues not because he wants to, but because he literally cannot help himself. It's an uncontrollable compulsion he cannot resist, despite his wishes. In this version, his diagnosis shifts to severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. He doesn't want to leave a clue for Batman, but his brain forces him to create riddles regardless of the tactical disadvantage this creates. Either way, whether it's narcissism or compulsion, the result is the same. A criminal who systematically undermines his own success to satisfy a psychological need, and when proven wrong, the Riddler reacts like a toddler having a meltdown. He enters fits of rage or complete mental breakdown because his entire worldview, in which he is superior, is shattered. His fragile ego cannot withstand the reality that someone might be smarter than him. The Riddler represents the mirror mirror in which Batman confronts his own reliance on intellect. Batman's victories often come through superior intelligence, preparation, and deduction, the very qualities that the Riddler has corrupted into narcissistic displays. The Riddler forces Batman to question whether confidence in his own intellect could transform into the grandiose narcissism that defines the Riddler himself. It's a thin line between justified confidence and delusional superiority, and the Riddler lives on the wrong side of it. At least the Riddler's obsession is intellectual. The next villain's obsession is so tragic it required a cryosuit to keep him alive: Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze is either the most tragic character in Batman's rogues gallery or a delusional, obsessive, pretending tragedy. Justifies murder, and the answer depends entirely on which version you're reading. Here's the thing: Mr. Freeze started as a joke. Bob Kane, David Wood, and Sheldon Moldoff created him in 1959 as Mr. Zero, a generic ice villain with zero depth. For decades, he was a D-list throwaway who showed up to freeze things and get punched. Nobody cared about Mr. Zero. But then Batman. The animated series happened in 1992 and completely reinvented the character. The animated version gave Victor Fries an actual backstory. He was a cryogenicist whose wife Nora had a terminal illness. Fries placed her in suspended animation while he searched for a cure, which is honestly beautiful in a desperate sort of way. But GothCorp's CEO Ferris Boyle pulled funding and literally unplugged Nora's life support. The confrontation triggered an accident that transformed Fries' body into something that can only survive at sub-zero temperatures. Room temperature kills him, so now he's trapped in a cryogenic suit, his wife is frozen, and the man who destroyed his life walks free. That version of Mr. Freeze wasn't insane. He was grief-stricken, yes, obsessed, absolutely. But he was driven by genuine love and inhuman rage masked by a cold exterior. For years, that's how everyone understood the character. A man who lost everything and became a villain not because he was broken mentally, but because the universe took the one thing that mattered, which makes him the perfect tragedy mirror for Batman. Both experienced profound loss. Bruce Wayne channeled grief into a disciplined mission to protect all of Gotham. Victor Fries channeled grief into a singular obsession to preserve one person. Batman's trauma created universal justice. Freeze's trauma created singular vengeance. They're both wearing technological suits to sustain their obsessions, both refusing to process grief and instead weaponizing it into their entire identity. But here's where it gets complicated. The New 52 reinvention under Scott Snyder took that sympathetic backstory and revealed it was all a delusion. Nora was never actually Victor's wife. She was a woman who'd been in suspended animation for decades before Fries ever found her. Freeze constructed an entire false relationship in his head, convinced himself they were married, and built his whole vendetta on a foundation of nothing. Even worse, the hard-hearted capitalist who pulled the plug wasn't some nameless corporate villain. It was Bruce Wayne. Batman himself destroyed the fantasy Freeze had constructed, which adds another layer of tragedy or delusion, depending on how you look at it. So the question becomes, is Mr. Freeze a man driven by genuine love who deserves sympathy, or is he a delusional obsessive using tragedy as justification for violence? The animated version says the former. The New 52 says the latter. Either way, he represents what happens when noble intentions curdle into obsession because grief isn't processed, it's weaponized. At least Freeze's obsession has a target, unlike the immortal eco-terrorist who thinks genocide counts as environmentalism. RA's A.L. Gowell. Batman fights street-level crime in a single city. Ra's al Ghul fights planetary-level crime by trying to murder 6 billion people, and he thinks Batman should help him do it. Created by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams in 1971, Ra's al Ghul translates to head of the demon, which is both accurate and underselling it. This man leads the League of Assassins, an international terrorist organization dedicated to achieving perfect environmental balance by eliminating most of humanity with biological weapons. He's not a mad bomber. He's a 700-year-old eco-fascist with resources that make Bruce Wayne look middle-class and a conviction that mass genocide is morally justified environmental activism. The Lazarus Pits grant him near immortality, reservoirs of rejuvenating chemicals that restore the dead and dying to life, keeping Ra's alive for over 7 centuries. 700 years of accumulated knowledge, combat training, strategic thinking, and financial resources. But here's the kicker. The Lazarus Pit has a side effect: temporary insanity called Lazarus fever that induces uncontrollable rage every time he uses it. So Ra's is simultaneously a genius strategist with centuries of experience and a man who periodically goes berserk with homicidal fury. Great combination for someone with access to biological weapons. What makes Ra's genuinely disturbing is that he's an idealist. He believes he's saving the world. From his perspective, humanity is a cancer destroying the planet, and the only cure is radical population reduction. He's not wrong about the environmental crisis. He's just wrong about the solution being industrialized genocide. Roz represents Batman's commitment to saving Gotham scaled to planetary dimensions, but completely unmoored from moral constraints. Batman operates outside the law to stop criminals. Roz operates outside the law to commit the single largest crime in human history while calling it salvation. It's vigilantism as totalitarianism. And here's where it gets deeply weird. Roz considers Bruce Wayne the only person worthy of leading the League of Assassins and continuing his mission. He actively seeks Batman as his heir. Roz sees in Batman the same qualities he values in himself: superior intellect, physical perfection, unwavering commitment, willingness to operate outside societal constraints. He just wants Batman to expand his definition of cause from stopping Gotham's muggers to orchestrating humanity's extinction. Roz even calls Batman detective as a term of respect. The man trying to murder billions of people respects Batman's crime-solving skills. This inverts Batman's entire legacy concern. Batman wrestles with whether he should have successors, whether training someone like Robin is moral, or just creating another obsessive vigilante. Roz has zero such concerns. He actively wants to perpetuate his mission through heirs, and he's identified Batman as the ideal candidate. Batman worries about corrupting others. Roz worries about not finding anyone competent enough to corrupt. The horror isn't just that Roz is trying to commit genocide, it's that he thinks Batman would be good at it. Roz is what happens when Batman's unilateral action expands from stopping purse snatchers to planetary-scale mass murder. He's the endpoint of the logic that one brilliant person can decide what's best for everyone without submitting to democratic processes. He's Batman if the crusade against corruption became a crusade against existence itself. 700 years of life has convinced Roz that he knows better than everyone. 80 years of crime fighting has convinced Batman that he knows better than Gotham's police. The only difference is scale and body count, but at least Roz operates with philosophical conviction and strategic planning, unlike the next guy who just wants to break things and prove he's stronger than you. Bane shares Batman's discipline, preparation, strategic thinking, and formative isolation, developing extraordinary skills, but inverted toward domination and conquest rather than justice. And when they finally fought, Batman lost. Here's the thing. Every other villain on this list represents some fractured aspect of Batman's psychology or methodology. The Joker is chaos versus order. Two-Face is duality. Scarecrow weaponizes fear. But Bane is different. Bane is Batman if Batman had been raised in hell instead of a mansion and decided the lesson was conquer instead of protect. Bane was born in the prison of Peña Duro on Santa Prisca. Not sent there, born there. Imprisoned from birth to serve his father's life sentence. He spent his entire childhood in one of the most hellish prisons on Earth, surrounded by violence, corruption, and death. And instead of breaking, he turned himself into a weapon. He developed genius-level intellect through self-education. He mastered multiple languages. He trained his body to peak human condition through systematic discipline. He studied strategy, psychology, and combat. All of this in a prison, with zero resources except willpower. That's Batman-level self-improvement. Except Batman had Alfred, a fortune, and a mansion. Bane had a cell and the will to survive. Then came the Venom experiments. The prison administration used Bane as a test subject for an experimental drug called Venom, a super steroid that grants immense strength but creates chemical dependency. The drug worked. Bane gained superhuman physical power, but the addiction represented a massive vulnerability, a permanent weakness built into his greatest strength, which, mirrors Batman's own addiction to his crusade. Both men are dependent on something that simultaneously empowers and destroys them. But here's where it gets complicated. Bane didn't defeat Batman through some clever trick or by exploiting a weakness Batman didn't know he had. Bane defeated Batman by being better. The Nightfall story arc, which ran from 1993 to 1994 over 6 months, systematically demonstrated that Batman's entire system of preparation, discipline, and intelligence could be overwhelmed by an opponent who matched those qualities while possessing greater physical power. Bane studied Batman for months. He orchestrated a mass breakout at Arkham Asylum, forcing Batman to recapture every major villain while already burned out and exhausted. Then, when Batman was at his absolute weakest, Bane confronted him directly in the Batcave and broke his back, not metaphorically, literally snapped Batman's spine over his knee. The significance of that victory is profound. Batman had always won through superior preparation, outthinking opponents, outplanning them, outdisciplining them. His entire methodology depended on the assumption that intellect plus discipline equals victory. Bane proved that assumption false. Equivalent discipline plus greater power beats preparation. Batman's system failed against an opponent who shared his strengths and exceeded his physical capabilities. For the first time, Batman's greatest qualities weren't enough. The willpower mirror reveals something Batman refuses to accept, that discipline and preparation unmoored from moral purpose becomes domination. Bane has Batman's intellect, Batman's discipline, Batman's strategic thinking, but he uses those qualities to conquer rather than protect. He's the man who broke the bat because he represents what happens when Batman's own methodology gets pointed in the wrong direction. And Batman couldn't stop him. But if you think one man systematically dismantling Batman's entire worldview is disturbing, wait until you hear about the secret society that's been controlling Gotham since before Batman was born, the Court of Owls. Batman spent decades fighting Gotham's criminals, individual psychopaths, mob bosses, terrorist masterminds. But every single one of those villains operated within a system they thought they understood. Turns out, they were all fighting for scraps, while the real power sat in the shadows, laughing at them. The Court of Owls was created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo in 2011, first appearing in Batman Volume 2, Number 1. And here's what makes them different from literally every other villain we've covered. They're not a mirror of Batman's psychology, they're a mirror of his blindness. This isn't one criminal mastermind. It's an aristocratic secret society that's been embedded into Gotham's foundations since before the city even had a name. The court evolved from the Bat Tribe, an ancient group that worshipped a cosmic bat deity named Barbatus, and became corrupted by that connection over centuries. They harvested a rare metal called electrum from Gotham, which was made from a regenerative chemical called Dionysium, and they used that chemical to engineer their Talons, a legion of superhuman assassins who don't stay dead. These assassins were groomed from facilities like Halley's Circus, the same place Dick Grayson came from, which means the court had their claws in Robin's origin story before Batman even knew they existed. Gotham children grow up hearing a nursery rhyme, "Beware the Court of Owls," that watches all the time, ruling Gotham from a shadow perch. Behind granite and lime, they watch you at your hearth, they watch you in your bed. Speak not a whispered word of them, or they'll send the Talon for your head. Batman dismissed it as urban legend, because Batman, for all his preparation and paranoia, assumed he understood Gotham's power structure. He thought he'd mapped every threat, but the court had been operating for centuries, completely unknown outside of folklore, controlling Gotham's infrastructure and political landscape while Batman fought street-level crime. The 2012 storyline Night of the Owls forced Batman to confront this. The court awakened all of their Talons simultaneously to prove a point. They, not Batman, are Gotham's superior legend. Batman had to face the uncomfortable truth that his entire crusade existed within a framework of corruption he didn't create and can't fully control. Every victory he'd won, every criminal he'd stopped, every reform he'd pushed through, all of it happened because the court allowed it to happen. They were the real architects of Gotham's suffering, operating through institutional power embedded in the city's very architecture. And that's the Heritage Mirror. The court represents systemic corruption predating Batman and beyond his capacity to eliminate through individual heroism. They force him to confront that saving Gotham requires more than punching criminals and solving mysteries. It requires dismantling institutions, confronting historical rot, and accepting that even Batman can't see everything. The Joker challenged his philosophy. Two-Face challenged his sense of justice. Bane challenged his body. But the Court of Owls challenged his entire understanding of what he's been fighting for decades. Batman thought he was Gotham's protector. The court showed him he was just another piece on their board. Batman designed a plan to defeat every member of the Justice League, not as a threat, not as a power trip, but as insurance. And when those plans were stolen, they nearly killed his teammates. Today, I'm breaking down every single contingency plan Batman created, how they work, and why they're so disturbingly effective, starting with the one that might be the most cruel thing he's ever put on paper. Martian Manhunter. Picture the most powerful telepath on Earth, a being who can phase through walls, shapeshift into anything, and read your thoughts before you finish thinking them, and now picture him screaming, on fire, from the inside out. Batman's contingency for John Johns is a nanite-based virus that converts his outer skin into a magnesium compound. The moment it contacts air, it ignites, not a manageable burn, magnesium combustion, over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and it produces its own oxygen as fuel. You cannot smother it. Submerging yourself in water actually makes it worse, because burning magnesium oxidizes water into hydrogen, which then also catches fire. Here's where it gets truly horrible. The fire isn't coming from anything external, it's his skin. His own body is the fuel source. Phase through a wall, still burning. Turn invisible, still burning. The reaction is chemical, not physical. There is no version of shapeshifting that lets you outrun your own epidermis, and Batman knew exactly what this would do psychologically. Martian civilization wasn't just damaged by fire, it was annihilated. John watched his entire species burn. Fire doesn't just hurt him physically, it collapses his telepathy, destabilizes his molecular control, and reduces one of the most composed beings in the DC universe to pure animal panic in seconds. When Ra's al Ghul stole and deployed this plan during Tower of Babel, he did it without the aluminum oxide counteragent Batman had built built into the original design. That counter agent was supposed to smother the reaction and make the whole thing reversible, non-lethal. But without it, John became a living torch with no off switch, which is, not ideal. The darkest part isn't even the chemistry, it's the targeting. John is the emotional core of the Justice League, the one who genuinely cares about humanity despite having every reason not to, and Batman looked at that trust and designed a weapon that turns it into a liability. You can't maintain a psychic link with your teammates when every nerve ending in your body is telling you that you're reliving the extinction of your species. Batman built a plan that makes the kindest member of the League experience his worst cultural memory on repeat, using his own biology as the delivery system, and he filed it away like a tax return. But at least John's plan has a theoretical off switch. The next one? Batman made the King of Atlantis afraid of water, Aquaman. On the surface, this sounds like the laziest plan Batman ever wrote. Just dehydrate the fish guy. Cool. Very creative, Bruce. But hear me out, because the actual execution of this contingency is one of the most psychologically cruel things in the entire Tower of Babel storyline. Here's what Batman actually designed. He took Scarecrow's fear toxin, a compound he's been exposed to, studied, and reverse engineered more times than anyone alive, and he modified it. Not to induce generalized panic, not to conjure nightmares about dead parents or clowns or whatever else keeps Arthur up at night. He narrowed it to a single specific stimulus: water. The modified toxin rewires Aquaman's brain to experience a complete, irrational terror of the one thing keeping him alive. And that's not hyperbole. Arthur Curry depends on regular water exposure the way you and I depend on oxygen. Total separation from water for several hours doesn't just weaken him, it can kill him. His Atlantean physiology dehydrates at an accelerated rate compared to a surface dweller, and without immersion, his organs start failing in a compressed time frame that would make a desert survival expert nervous. So now picture the trap. You're the King of Atlantis. You can feel your body drying out, your cells screaming for moisture, every biological alarm in your system telling you that you need water right now or you will die. And your brain, courtesy of a weaponized neurotoxin, is simultaneously convinced that water is the most dangerous thing in existence, that touching it, being near it, even seeing it, will destroy you. The only path to survival feels identical to suicide. Batman's supplementary specs make it worse. The files describe a sealed, climate-controlled facility designed to wick moisture directly from Aquaman's skin while blocking all fluid access. Dry air, constant temperature regulation, zero humidity. Arthur wouldn't just be scared of water. He physically couldn't reach any, even if he overcame the fear. The brilliance here, if you can call it that, is the efficiency. Batman didn't invent a new weapon. He repurposed a tool he already understood better than anyone on Earth and simply gave it a laser focus. One chemical, one phobia, one target. The entire King of Atlantis, neutralized by a modified gas canister and a dehumidifier. In Tower of Babel, it takes Martian Manhunter using telepathy to manually override Arthur's rewired fear response, which is essentially John reaching into Aquaman's brain and flipping the panic switch back off by force. Not exactly a casual Tuesday afternoon for anyone involved. But if you think exploiting someone's survival instinct is dark, wait until you hear what Batman did to a man whose only weapon is his own imagination. Green Lantern. The Green Lantern ring is the most powerful weapon in the universe. It can create anything its bearer imagines, protect against nearly any threat, and operates with zero lag between thought and reality. And Batman figured out how to shut it down with a whisper? Here's the thing about the ring that nobody thinks about. It doesn't distinguish between conscious commands and subconscious ones. A thought is a thought. The ring doesn't care if you meant to think it. It just obeys. In Tower of Babel, Batman's plan for Kyle Rayner is almost insultingly simple. He implants a post-hypnotic suggestion that convinces Kyle he's blind. That's it. No kryptonite equivalent, no exotic technology. Just a carefully planted idea that makes him believe he cannot see. And the ring cooperates. Kyle believes he's blind, so his constructs fail. His mind tells him he can't see, and the ring has nothing to work with. The most powerful weapon in the universe just became useless because its user's own brain decided his eyes didn't work anymore. Kyle Rayner is a visual artist. His entire approach to the ring is built on seeing something in his mind's eye and projecting it outward. Without the belief that he can see, he cannot form mental images that become constructs. The ring still works, still charged, still ready, but Kyle can't use it because he can't picture what he wants to create. Batman didn't break the weapon, he broke the interface. It's like hacking the most advanced computer on Earth by putting tape over the monitor. The system runs perfectly. The user just can't interact with it anymore. But if you thought that was psychologically cruel, the John Stewart version in Justice League, Doom makes the blindness plan look like a gentle prank. For John, Batman attacks the soul. The plan uses fear gas and a staged android simulation to convince John that he made a catastrophic tactical error that killed innocent civilians. significance. John doesn't just see the deaths, he believes he caused them, and Batman's own notes articulate the kill shot coldly. Will is the source of your strength, and fear is the enemy of will. A Green Lantern's power is literally fueled by willpower. The ring measures it, responds to it, scales with it. Guilt and self-doubt don't just make John feel bad. They fracture the energy source that keeps the ring operational. When John believes he doesn't deserve to wield it, the ring agrees. Output drops to nearly zero. The most powerful weapon in the universe doesn't malfunction. It just quietly decides its bearer isn't worthy anymore. Two plans. Same target system. Completely different attack vectors. One makes him unable to use the ring, the other makes the ring unable to use him. Both exploit the same architectural feature, the ring's total, unquestioning obedience to its bearer's mind. Batman looked at the most powerful weapon in the universe and found a backdoor exploit that required zero force and zero direct confrontation. Just an understanding that a mind-controlled weapon is only as strong as the mind controlling it. But if you think hacking a ring is impressive, wait until you see what Batman designed for someone who doesn't have a weapon to exploit. Someone who is the weapon, Wonder Woman. Here's the thing about Wonder Woman. Batman looked at every member of the Justice League, found a weakness, and built a plan around it. Kryptonite for Superman, fire for Martian Manhunter. But when he got to Diana, he hit a wall. Because Wonder Woman doesn't really have a weakness. She's got the combat skill of someone who's been training for centuries, the raw power to trade blows with Superman, and the durability to survive almost anything you throw at her. Batman has openly admitted he has no perfect plan to beat her in a direct fight, which is, not ideal when your whole thing is having a plan for everything. So he didn't build a plan to fight her, he built a plan to make her fight herself. The contingency works like this. Nanites are injected into Diana's ear canal, tiny enough that she wouldn't notice, and they interface directly with her nervous system. Once activated, they trap her consciousness inside a fully immersive virtual reality combat simulation. Inside that simulation, she faces a single opponent who matches her exactly in strength, speed, skill, and tactical awareness. A perfect mirror. And here's the cruel part. This opponent cannot be defeated. It's designed to be endless. For most people, that would be a problem you'd eventually walk away from. But Diana isn't most people. Her warrior code, the Amazonian ethos she was raised on, forbids surrender. It forbids retreat. She does not quit, ever. That's not stubbornness. That's her entire identity, and Batman turned it into a kill switch. From the outside, she appears to be convulsing or standing completely still, but internally, her heart rate is spiking, her muscles are firing at maximum output continuously, zero rest. She believes she's in the fight of her life, so her body responds accordingly. Full effort, no breaks, no recovery, just constant, escalating physical strain until her heart gives out from exhaustion. Her own virtue becomes the murder weapon. In Justice League, Doom, the adaptation tweaks this slightly. The tech makes Diana perceive every civilian around her as an enemy combatant, so she fights in the real world, non-stop, against people she genuinely believes are trying to kill her. Same principle, same outcome. She won't stop because she can't stop. Batman essentially concluded that the only way to neutralize Wonder Woman is to never let her know she's being neutralized. No direct confrontation, no clever gadget, just deception, delivered at the neurological level. If she breaks free of the simulation even once, the whole thing collapses, and he's back to having no answer. The VR trap is haunting because it doesn't exploit a flaw, it exploits a strength. Diana's refusal to ever give up, the exact quality that makes heroic, becomes a self-destruct timer counting down to cardiac arrest. She dies believing she's fighting honorably. She dies because she's too brave to stop. But if you think weaponizing someone's greatest virtue is dark, wait until you hear what Batman designed for the fastest man alive, the Flash. This is where Batman's plans stop being clever and start being genuinely terrifying, because everything up to this point has been localized. Fire on skin, fear of water, a bad dream. But the Flash contingency operates on a completely different scale. Batman looked at the fastest man alive and asked one simple question. What happens when something moving at the speed of light loses control of its own body? The answer is, a city disappears. Batman's primary weapon here is a vibrabullet, a specially designed projectile fired into the back of the Flash's neck while he's in motion. Once embedded near the base of the skull, it emits a vibrational frequency tuned to disrupt neural signaling in a speedster's nervous system. The result is continuous seizures at light speed, not a brief stumble. Constant, unrelenting loss of motor control while the Flash's body is already traveling at velocities where air molecules hit like shrapnel. Here's the thing most people miss about this plan. Batman doesn't need the seizure to kill the Flash. He needs the seizure to turn the Flash into the weapon. At near light speeds, even a momentary loss of balance converts a human body into a hypersonic projectile carrying more kinetic energy than most conventional explosives. The Flash's own momentum does all the work. Batman just has to make him trip. Later versions refine this into nanite-based technology. Micro-injections near the spine deliver nanites that remain dormant until they detect speed force activity. The moment Flash kicks into super speed, they activate, firing seizure-inducing neural interference calibrated to his accelerated physiology. He crashes because the system guarantees a collision with solid objects at supersonic velocity, which is, not ideal. But one attack vector wasn't enough. This is a man who can vibrate through walls and outrun time itself. So Bruce built redundancy, backup plan 1, cryogenic devices. Rapidly dropping the Flash's body temperature severes his link to the Speed Force by slowing his metabolism below the threshold required to maintain it. No Speed Force, no speed. He becomes a normal human in a red suit, standing very confused in the middle of whatever city he was just blitzing through. Backup Plan 2. Magic. Batman's files include a contingency involving a magical staff that physically transforms the Flash into a diminished form, stripping his speed and his advanced cognition entirely. Just a guy who used to be the fastest thing in existence, now cut off from everything that made him dangerous. 3 completely separate attack vectors. Neural disruption, metabolic severance, magical rewriting. That level of paranoia requires 3 fundamentally different kill switches, because any single one might get outrun. And in Justice League, Doom, the Legion of Doom adapted this into something arguably worse. They attached a speed-sensitive bomb to the Flash's wrist that would detonate if he slowed below a certain velocity. Run forever, or everyone around you dies. They weaponized his own heroism as the leash that kept him sprinting until his body gave out. A seizure at rest is a medical emergency. A seizure at the speed of light is an extinction-level event wearing a pair of running shoes. But if you think a plan for the fastest man alive sounds paranoid, wait until you hear what Batman designed for someone who is functionally immortal and can't be killed by any conventional means. Plastic Man. Batman has gone on record saying Plastic Man is one of the most dangerous beings on the planet. Let that sink in for a second. Not Superman, not Martian Manhunter. Plastic Man, the stretchy guy who turns into a trampoline for laughs. Batman considers him a legitimate threat to the entire Justice League if he ever snapped, and honestly, he's right. Here's the thing about Patrick O'Brien. He has complete molecular control over his entire body. He can become anything, any size, any shape, any density. He's bulletproof, explosion-proof, and essentially ageless. Batman has specifically stated that Plastic Man is the only person on Earth who could truly stop Martian Manhunter, which, given what we just covered about John, should tell you exactly how seriously Bruce takes this guy. But the real kicker is the immortality. Plastic Man was once shattered into tiny fragments and scattered across the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. He stayed there, in pieces, on the ocean floor for 3,000 years. 3,000! And then he just put himself back together, like nothing happened. The pressure of an entire ocean couldn't destroy him. Millennia of isolation couldn't destroy him. He is, for all practical purposes, unkillable. So how does Batman plan to stop a functionally immortal shapeshifter with unlimited molecular control? Liquid nitrogen? That's it. A substance you can buy from an industrial supplier. Flash freeze his entire malleable body and his molecular structure locks into a rigid, glass-like state. No stretching, no shifting, no reshaping. He becomes a statue. In Tower of Babel, Ra's al Ghul takes this concept and cranks it to lethal. He freezes Plastic Man solid with liquid nitrogen, then shatters him with a hammer into scattered shards across the ocean floor, which, given what we know about the 3,000-year thing, probably wouldn't even kill him permanently. It would just be incredibly unpleasant for a very, very long time. But Batman's non-lethal version is arguably worse, and I mean that sincerely. In the refined contingency, Batman doesn't shatter him. He freezes Plastic Man solid and then stores him in a temperature-controlled vault, maintained at a constant temperature just below his melting point. Plastic Man remains conscious the entire time. He can think, he can feel, he just can't move, can't shift a single molecule. A living mind trapped in a frozen body, potentially forever, stored in a refrigerated box in some sub-basement of the Batcave. That's not imprisonment. That's a waking coma with no expiration date, which is, not ideal. There's also a secondary weakness worth noting. Certain chemical solvents, particularly acetone, can disrupt Plastic Man's structural integrity at a molecular level, but Batman considers freezing the superior option because it's more controllable, more transportable, and doesn't risk unpredictable chemical reactions in a body whose biology nobody fully understands. Better to lock the whole system in place than try to dissolve parts of it and hope for the best. The beautiful, horrible irony of this entire plan is the scale mismatch. A being who survived 3,000 years of ocean pressure, who laughed off being atomized, who Batman himself ranks as a planetary-level threat, undone by something that costs about 50 cents per liter. All that godlike power, and the off switch is a hardware store purchase, and a really good freezer. But if you think freezing an immortal shapeshifter in conscious paralysis is dark, wait until you hear what Batman designed for the most powerful being in the DC universe, Superman. This is the one. The plan everyone wants to know about. And here's the thing, Batman Batman doesn't just grab a chunk of green kryptonite off the shelf and call it a day. He engineers an entirely new element from scratch. Because of course he does. Batman takes a piece of green kryptonite and exposes it to carefully calibrated radiation until it transforms into a synthetic red kryptonite variant, a bespoke weapon designed for one person on one planet. And what it does is brilliantly cruel. It doesn't poison Superman. It doesn't weaken his cells or make him sick. It overloads his body's ability to process solar radiation, causing his powers to burn out of control without any way to regulate them. Now that sounds manageable, maybe even survivable. But hear me out. Superman's powers operate on a system of unconscious control. He doesn't actively choose not to crush every doorknob he touches or incinerate everything he looks at. His body manages that output automatically, keeping everything calibrated. Remove that regulation, and suddenly there's nothing standing between Clark Kent and the full, uncontrollable output of his own abilities. His heat vision fires without command. His strength becomes impossible to modulate. His entire power set, normally his greatest tactical advantage, becomes an uncontrollable chain reaction he cannot shut off or escape from. The result is total paralysis through overwhelming pain. Not because he's weak, because he's too strong. His own powers overwhelm him from the inside out. And Batman knows that might not be enough. This is Superman, a being who can move planets, outrun light, and survive inside stars. One trick is never going to be a guarantee, so the file contains redundancies that read less like a contingency plan and more like a dissertation. Backup 1. An ionizing radiation chamber that slowly strips Superman's ability to absorb solar energy, draining his powers over time until he's effectively human. Backup 2. Red sun radiation that depletes his yellow sun energy reserves directly, recreating the conditions of Krypton's home star. Backup 3. Hypersonic frequencies, specifically tuned to Kryptonian ear structures, weaponizing his super hearing as a standalone attack vector even without the red kryptonite. Then there's lead. Simple, boring, ordinary lead. Batman notes it as a tactical masking tool because Superman's X-ray vision cannot penetrate it, meaning any of these weapons, any of these traps, can be hidden in plain sight inside a lead-lined case, and Clark would never see them coming. This is the most layered file in the entire contingency archive. Multiple redundant attack vectors, each exploiting a different aspect of Kryptonian biology. And that layering isn't paranoia, it's respect. Batman knows that a single approach will probably fail against someone who can hear your heartbeat from orbit and punch through dimensions. So he builds 5 approaches and assumes at least 2 of them will need to work simultaneously. The whole philosophy of this plan is turning Superman's gifts into liabilities. His solar absorption becomes a poison. His strength becomes destruction he can't prevent. His powers become weapons pointed inward. Every single thing that makes Clark Kent the most powerful being on Earth becomes, under the right conditions, the reason he can't function. Which is, not ideal for Clark. But if you think Batman planning for his best friend is uncomfortable, wait until you see what he built for himself, because that one makes everything else in this file look like a gentle suggestion. Batman. Every other plan in this video asks the same question. What if a hero, M, goes rogue? This one asks something worse. What if I go rogue? And Bruce's answer is more ruthless than anything he consciously allowed himself to build. In Justice League, Doom, Superman confronts Batman directly. You made plans for all of us. What's your plan for yourself? And Bruce gives what sounds like a satisfying answer. He trusts the League to stop him. 6 of the most powerful beings on Earth as his personal failsafe. Sounds reasonable. Sounds humble, even. Turns out, no. Recent comics reveal that was only part of the truth, and honestly, probably the least important part. Because buried inside Bruce Wayne's mind is something far more extreme than any kryptonite ring or vibrabullet. It's called the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, and it's a split personality that Bruce engineered as a mental contingency. Not a disguise, not a codename, a fully separate persona, designed to activate and take over if Bruce's mind is ever compromised by psychic attack, emotional breakdown, or any form of cognitive failure. Here's the thing about Zur-En-Arrh. He's everything Batman would be without the parts that make Bruce human. Hyper-rational, emotionally blunted, zero hesitation, zero sentiment, zero attachment to the people Bruce loves. He exists purely to continue the mission when Bruce Wayne can no longer be trusted to do it properly. Which sounds like a reasonable backup until you realize that a backup personality with no emotional constraints will inevitably conclude that the emotional constraints were the problem all along. And that's exactly what happened. Because Zur-En-Arrh, operating as this cold, detached backup intelligence, secretly designed and built something called Failsafe, a superpowered android loaded with Amazo-level technology, constructed without Bruce's conscious knowledge or memory. Bruce didn't know it existed. He didn't know its capabilities. He couldn't have shut it down if he wanted to, because that was the entire point. A contingency you can disarm isn't really a contingency. Failsafe's activation condition is simple and terrifying. If Batman ever never kills someone, not goes on a rampage, not joins a villain. Just one death, one body. That's the threshold. And when Penguin's apparent death frames Bruce for murder, the protocol fires. Failsafe wakes up with a single directive: neutralize Batman as a compromised asset. Now here's where it gets genuinely nightmarish. Failsafe doesn't just hunt Bruce. It contains preloaded countermeasures for the entire Justice League, including kryptonite weaponry, because of course it does. It was built by the part of Batman's brain that has zero faith in anyone, including the League Bruce publicly claimed would be his failsafe. Failsafe nearly defeats them all, Superman included. But the real horror isn't the robot's power, it's the recursion. Follow the chain. Bruce builds a backup mind because he doesn't trust himself. The backup mind builds a kill robot because it doesn't trust Bruce. The kill robot activates because it doesn't trust anyone. And eventually, Zur-Enar's consciousness merges with the failsafe body, creating an autonomous new Batman that looks at the original Bruce Wayne and reaches a perfectly logical conclusion. You're redundant. The mission continues without you. The ultimate contingency escaped its creator. That's the central paradox of everything we've covered today. The man who refuses to trust a single being in the universe without building a failsafe applied that same logic to himself and produced the single most dangerous thing in his universe. Not Darkseid, not Brainiac, a robot born from his own paranoia, designed by a version of himself he can't control, carrying weapons he doesn't remember building, activated by a threshold he didn't set. Every other plan in this video can be disarmed. Flush the nanites, administer the antidote, remove the ring, but you can't disarm a contingency that lives inside your own skull and has already decided you're the threat. Everyone thinks they know which Batman suit is the best because it's their favorite movie, but personal nostalgia has nothing to do with actual combat engineering. Today I'm ranking every major Batman suit from worst to best, based on real armor design, tactical utility, and whether Bruce Wayne would actually survive a night in Gotham wearing it. Starting with the one everybody already knows belongs at the bottom, the Schumacher nipple suit. Look, you already know why this is here. The sculpted nipples first showed up in Batman Forever in 1995, but it wasn't until George Clooney stepped into Batman and Robin 2 years later that the design reached full self-parody. And honestly, the nipples aren't just ugly, they're actively, measurably terrible from a combat engineering standpoint. The suit was constructed from molded rubber and foam latex, designed to mimic Greco-Roman statuary. Noble inspiration, sure, but the execution created something that fails at literally every job a batsuit is supposed to do. Let's start with those nipples. They're raised rigid protrusions on a chest plate. In real armor design, you want surfaces that deflect and disperse impact energy across a wide area. These do the exact opposite. They concentrate force into two specific points. Any blunt strike to the chest now has a convenient focal point to drive energy directly into the sternum. It's like putting a target on yourself, but worse, because the target is also a structural weakness. The cowl and neck are a single rigid piece, meaning Clooney couldn't turn his head without rotating his entire torso. In a street fight, situational awareness is everything. This suit turns Batman into a man who has to do a full pirouette to check his six, which is, not ideal. Then there's the finish. That glossy, reflective surface catches every source of light in the environment. Batman's entire operational advantage is darkness and stealth. This suit actively betrays his position like a disco ball in a sewer. The abdominal segmentation is another disaster. Those pronounced muscle bulges create fracture lines where a continuous plate would prevent penetration. You've essentially pre-scored the armor for your enemies. Now, the eternal fan debate. Was this intentional camp or a studio-driven miscalculation optimized for action figure molds? Honestly, doesn't matter. The result speaks for itself. Batman and Robin underperformed so badly that Warner Bros. Shelved Batman for 8 years. But here's the ironic legacy nobody talks about. This suit's failure is the reason Christopher Nolan got to make Batman Begins. The nipple suit crashed so hard that the studio handed a serious filmmaker complete creative control to rebuild from scratch. This rubber disaster directly created the most grounded, realistic Batman ever put on screen. So, in a way, thank you, nipple suit. Your sacrifice was not in vain. But if you think molded rubber nipples are bad engineering, wait until you see what Batman was working with in 1939. The Golden Age original. Let's get something straight. This suit has zero business being in a ranked list based on combat effectiveness. It's cloth. It is literally cloth. A man put on gray pajamas, a black cape, and purple gloves in 1939 and said, yeah, this'll work against guys with Tommy guns. And you know what? He was right, because here we are, 85 years later, still drawing that silhouette on lunchboxes. Detective Comics number 27. Bob Kane gets the credit on the cover, but it was Bill Finger who pitched the cowl, the cape, the dark color scheme, basically everything that makes Batman look like Batman instead of a guy in red tights with stiff wings. The original design was simple: gray bodysuit, black cape and cowl, a plain bat emblem on the chest, and those purple gloves that have absolutely no tactical justification. Bruce Wayne looked at his wardrobe options and thought, yeah, purple feels threatening, which is, a choice. Here's the thing about protection. There was none. Early Batman comics never once mentioned bulletproof materials. Bruce survived because he was fast, because he stuck to the shadows, and because the writers simply decided bullets wouldn't hit him that issue. The cape swept nearly to the floor, which looks incredible in a panel, but would give any real opponent a free handle to yank. Tight quarters? That thing's getting caught on every doorframe in Gotham. But the suit evolved in small, interesting ways. Those purple gloves grew longer across issues, eventually sprouting scalloped fins along the forearms. That's it. That's the entire journey from costume to proto-armor in the Golden Age. One accessory got slightly more aggressive. Meanwhile, later writers would retroactively slap Kevlar and Nomex descriptions onto this thing despite the fact that Kevlar wasn't invented until 1965. They needed Bruce to seem credible without changing what he looked like, so they just quietly pretended the cloth was magic cloth all along. And honestly, none of that matters. What matters is this: pointed ears, scalloped cape, bat emblem on chest. That combination, drawn in a handful of panels by artists working on tight deadlines for pennies a page, became the DNA of every single suit on this list. Every armor plate, every titanium weave, every tactical upgrade that followed is just a remix of what Bill Finger scribbled on a napkin. The suit scores dead last in protection. You could defeat Golden Age Batman with a firm shove and a pair of scissors, but in terms of pure iconic influence, it's untouchable. So, yeah, worst armor in the ranking, most important design in the ranking. The grandfather earns his spot, but if the Golden Age suit represents Batman at his most vulnerable, the next entry on this list represents the first time a movie genuinely tried to answer the question, what would this armor actually be made of? The Nolan Dark Knight suit. Most Batman suits get upgraded between movies and nobody says a word about it. New film, new suit, move on. But the Dark Knight suit is the only one where Bruce Wayne sits down with Lucius Fox on screen and says, out loud, I need to be able to turn my head. That's the upgrade request. And that single line of dialogue is what separates this suit from every other live-action Batman armor ever made. Here's the thing. The Batman Begins suit was essentially one solid piece from the neck up. Bruce could take a bullet to the chest, sure, but he fought like a man trapped inside a refrigerator. So for the Dark Knight, the entire design philosophy changed. Instead of a single armored shell, the new suit consists of over 100 separate armor pieces mounted over a flexible mesh undersuit with the cowl completely separated from the neck. Bruce can finally look left without rotating his entire torso like a security camera. The materials are explicitly described in the film: hardened Kevlar plates over a titanium-dipped fiber weave. Lucius Fox says it, on screen, to Bruce's face. The cape uses a fictional memory cloth that goes rigid with an electric current, turning it into a glider wing on demand. The gauntlets have retractable blades that fire as projectiles. Every piece has a stated purpose and a stated limitation, and that limitation is the entire point. The segmented design that lets him move faster also introduces gaps between the armor plates, gaps where things can get through. Dogs bite through those gaps on screen. A shotgun blast catches him in one of those gaps on screen. The movie shows you the blood. That trade-off, mobility over protection, is what makes this suit genuinely interesting. Every other cinematic Batman is basically invincible until the plot says otherwise. Nolan's Batman chose to be easier to hurt so he could be harder to hit, and the film treats that choice as a real tactical decision with real costs. Then there's the sensor suite. The cowl contains a sonar vision system linked to a citywide surveillance network, letting Batman see through walls using reflected sound waves. And the film is so committed to realism that it immediately raises the ethical problem of mass surveillance and has the system destroyed by the end of the movie. Even the tech has consequences. The aesthetic follows the same philosophy. The bat emblem is subdued, black on black, no contrast. The shorter cowl ears, the matte finish, the angular plating. Everything says operator, nothing says comic book. Some fans argue the segmented look makes Batman less intimidating because it breaks up his silhouette, but love it or hate it, this is the only cinematic Batsuit where the design choices are justified in dialogue, demonstrated in action, and then punished on screen when they fail. That's not just a costume, that's engineering with a thesis statement. But if you think a suit built for realism is impressive, wait until you see what happens when Batman's armor is built purely for presence. Because the 1989 suit didn't need to explain itself, it just needed to terrify you. The Keaton 1989 suit Here's the thing about the 1989 Batsuit. Before Michael Keaton stepped on screen in Tim Burton's Batman, every live-action version of this character looked like a guy in pajamas. Spandex, cloth, maybe some light padding if you were lucky. Then June 23, 1989 happened, and suddenly Batman was wearing actual armor. Sculpted, black, foam latex body armor that made him look less like a superhero and more like a gothic nightmare that crawled out of a German expressionist painting, and it changed everything. The suit was constructed from foam latex layered over a flexible understructure weighing dozens of pounds. Multiple copies were built for production, lighter ones for stunts, heavier hero pieces for close-ups, because you couldn't exactly do a backflip in the version designed to look perfect on camera. But here's where it gets interesting. There's a moment early in the film where a thug shoots Batman square in the chest. The bullet hits, Batman stumbles back, and it just doesn't penetrate. That's the first time in live-action history that a Batsuit demonstrably stops around on screen. Before this, Batman survived gunfire through plot convenience. Now he survived it because his suit was designed to take the hit. Which brings us to the yellow oval, that bright yellow circle around the Bat emblem. Purely a branding choice, right? Merchandising gold? Maybe. But there's a theory that's persisted for decades. The most visible part of the suit is a tactical trap. You see a giant yellow target in the dark, you shoot at it. And that target sits directly over the most heavily armored plate on the entire suit. You're hitting exactly where Batman wants you to hit. Whether that was the original design intent or a retroactive rationalization dreamed up by fans, the logic holds, and that's kind of beautiful. Now, the suit had problems. Serious ones. The cowl and neck were fused into a single rigid piece, which meant Keaton physically could not turn his head at all. He had to rotate his entire torso to look sideways, creating that famous full-body bat turn that became a meme decades before memes existed. In any real combat scenario, this would get you killed. Zero peripheral awareness. Zero ability to check your flanks without telegraphing the movement to everyone in the room. The gauntlet fins could deflect blades. The cape implied some kind of glide configuration, but the mobility situation was, to put it gently, not ideal. And yet, this suit became the template. Comics started drawing Batman darker, heavier, more armored. The animated series pulled from it, video games pulled from it. The entire cultural understanding of what Batman looks like shifted because of a foam latex costume that its actor could barely move in. It fused horror iconography with noir style and created a gothic knight that audiences took seriously for the first time. The paradox is that a suit with terrible mobility became one of the most influential armor designs in superhero history. It proved that Batman could work in live action not as camp, not as a joke, but as something genuinely intimidating. Every armored Batsuit that came after this one owes it a debt. But if the Keaton suit proved Batman could take a bullet, wait until you see what happens when he needs to take a punch from a literal god. The BVS mech suit. Here's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. What does Batman wear to fight God? Because that's what Superman is. He's not a tough guy. He's not a metahuman with a gimmick. He's a being who can move planets, shrug off nuclear warheads, and melt steel with his eyes. And Bruce Wayne looked at that and said, yeah, I'm going to punch him, which is either the bravest or the dumbest thing anyone has ever committed to. Probably both. The mech suit from Batman v Superman is pulled almost directly from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, the 1986 comic that basically invented the concept of old, angry Batman strapping into a walking tank, and the film version leans into that hard. This isn't a Batsuit. This is a siege engine shaped like a man. Thick gray plating, industrial bolts, glowing white eyes that make Batman look less like a vigilante and more like a machine that was built to end something. The sleek silhouette is gone. The stealth is gone. The cape is shortened to a stubby afterthought. Everything about this suit says one thing. I am not sneaking up on you. I am walking directly towards you, and you should be scared. And for about 90 seconds, it works perfectly. Batman tanks punches that send him through concrete walls. He gets up. He trades blows with a Kryptonian, which is a sentence that should not be physically possible. The strength amplification lets him ragdoll Superman across a rooftop, smash him through a floor, and swing a bathroom sink into his face. The suit keeps Bruce alive through impacts that would reduce a normal human to paste. But here's the thing. The suit doesn't beat Superman. The kryptonite beats Superman. The gas grenades weaken him, the spear finishes him. The armor just keeps Bruce breathing long enough to deploy those weapons. Without the kryptonite, this suit is a very durable coffin. That's not hyperbole. The moment the gas wears off, Superman starts peeling the armor apart like tinfoil, ripping plates off, cratering the helmet, treating the entire exoskeleton like a mild inconvenience. convenience. That's the tension that makes this suit so compelling. It's Batman at his most desperate and his most brilliant simultaneously. He built the answer to an impossible question, and the answer only works once, for less than 2 minutes, with zero margin for error. Miss with the grenade? Dead. Lose the spear? Dead. Superman recovers 3 seconds earlier? Dead. The suit still reads as Batman, though. The chest emblem is there, etched into the plating. The helmet has the ears. Even at his most mechanized, Bruce won't abandon the symbol. He needs Superman to know exactly who is beating him. Not a soldier, not a machine. Batman, it's not versatile. You can't patrol in it. You can't chase anyone in it. You definitely can't do stealth in it, because it sounds like a filing cabinet falling downstairs every time you take a step. But for its one specific job, fighting a god and surviving long enough to make him bleed, it's a masterpiece of single-purpose engineering. But if you think a suit built to fight Superman is impressive, wait until you see what happens when Batman's armor is designed to fight an entire city. The Arkham Knight suit. Most Batsuits protect a man. The V8.03 turns a man into a system. Here's the thing about the Arkham Knight Batsuit that separates it from basically every other armor on this list. It doesn't just cover Bruce Wayne. It connects him to the car, to the city, to every camera, every sensor, every structural weakness in every building across Gotham. The suit isn't the weapon. Gotham is the weapon. The suit is just the interface. Rocksteady debuted this thing mid-campaign in 2015's Arkham Knight as the final evolution of everything Bruce has been building across 3 games. The V7 suits from Asylum and City were great, sure, but this is the version where the engineering philosophy shifts. Previous suits asked, how do we protect Batman? This one asks, how do we make Batman omniscient? The design is military hardware filtered through comic book iconography, segmented plating over a dark hex-patterned undersuit, glossy black armor pieces that catch the rain in Gotham's perpetual downpour, and a cowl that integrates with the neck armor so smoothly Bruce can actually turn his head. Revolutionary stuff in the Bat Armor world? Apparently, the Fear multi-takedown mechanic, where Batman chains stealth knockouts in rapid sequence, is justified in-universe as a consequence of lighter materials and better weight distribution. The armor is more responsive, so Bruce moves faster between targets, without the suit fighting him. Rocksteady actually connected gameplay upgrades to physical engineering changes. The suit got better, so Batman got faster. Cause and effect? Then there's the Batmobile integration. The cowl's detective mode sensor suite highlights enemies through walls, identifies structural weaknesses for the car's weapons to exploit, and feeds targeting data directly to the vehicle's systems. Batman doesn't drive the Batmobile. He wears it. The car, the suit, the surveillance network, all one platform with Bruce Wayne as the central processing unit. Durability-wise, the thing is absurd. Sustained assault rifle fire, point-blank explosions, falls from heights that would turn a normal person into abstract art. The segmented plating disperses force across layered composites, while the joints maintain full range of motion. Developer commentary links the design philosophy to real-world military exoskeleton research, which gives the whole thing a grounding that most video game armor completely lacks. And here's a detail that sells it more than any tech brief ever could. The suit gets damaged. Scratches accumulate, dents appear. Rain droplets sit on the armor and roll off as Bruce moves. It's working equipment used nightly, taking punishment and showing it, but none of it matters against what's happening inside Bruce's skull. The V8.03 can stop bullets. It can survive explosions. It can interface with a tank and turn an entire city into a surveillance grid. What it cannot do is stop Scarecrow's fear toxin from rewriting Bruce's perception of reality. It cannot prevent the Joker's psyche from hijacking his senses, turning his own mind into enemy territory. All that armor, all that technology, and the thing that's actually killing Batman is a dead clown laughing inside his head. The suit treats Batman as a system, but the system has a vulnerability that no amount of segmented plating can patch. And that gap between physical invincibility and psychological fragility is what makes the V8.03 one of the most compelling pieces of Batman equipment ever designed. Now, if you think a suit that turns Gotham into a weapon is impressive, wait until you see what happens when Batman stops pretending he's still human and builds something that doesn't even need a cape. The Batman Beyond Exosuit. Here's a design paradox that shouldn't work, but absolutely does. The simplest looking suit on this entire list is hiding the most complex technology of any canonical Batman armor ever created. We're talking about a sleek black bodysuit with a red bat on the chest. No external belt, no visible gadgets, no flowing cape. It looks like someone redesigned Batman as a sports car, and underneath that minimalist shell is essentially a wearable fighter jet. The Batman Beyond suit first appeared in 1999. The animated series is set roughly 40 years in Gotham's future, where an elderly Bruce Wayne has hung up the cowl due to failing health. But because Bruce Wayne cannot stop being Bruce Wayne, he spent those 4 decades iterating on his armor, perfecting it, obsessing over every weakness that ever got him hurt. And the result is a full-powered exoskeleton with servo motors and artificial muscle fibers that amplify the wearer's strength, speed, and endurance beyond peak human levels. Let me be specific about what this thing can do. It flies, not glides. Flies. Rocket boots and retractable red wings give the wearer sustained powered flight, making this one of the only canonical Batsuits with full 3-dimensional mobility. Every other suit on this list is essentially falling with style. This one actually goes up, it turns invisible. An active camouflage system bends light around the wearer for near total concealment, not hides in shadows well, literally invisible. And here's the detail that matters more than any of that: the full face cowl. Every single suit we've talked about before this one has the same glaring problem: the exposed jaw. One lucky punch, one knife, one bullet slightly off center, and Bruce Wayne's dental records become public knowledge. The Beyond suit eliminates that weakness entirely. The cowl covers everything. White lenses, no visible pupils, no exposed skin. It's less of a mask and more of a helmet. When the wings deploy, the suit evokes a bat in full flight, angular red membranes stretching from the arms like something out of a nightmare. When they retract, the profile goes sleek and almost alien. It's a design that shifts between Predator and Ghost depending on what the moment requires. But here's where it gets complicated. The suit's greatest strength is also its most terrifying vulnerability. Because everything runs on integrated electronics, the whole system is susceptible to electromagnetic pulses, hacking attempts, and full system hijacking. In one arc, the suit is remotely taken over. Someone else controls your arms, your legs, your weapons. You're trapped inside your own armor watching yourself do things you didn't choose to do. Which raises the scariest question in Batman's entire history. What happens when the suit decides it doesn't need you anymore? That vulnerability is real, and it's not theoretical. It happened, and it's the one thing that keeps this suit from being a perfect 10 across the board. You're trading the exposed jaw problem for a someone can puppet your body problem. I don't know which one is worse, but at least a punch to the jaw doesn't make you attack your own allies. Still, flight, invisibility, strength amplification, full protective coverage. 40 years of Bruce Wayne's paranoia distilled into a single black shell that looks like it weighs nothing. This is what happens when the world's greatest detective has 4 more decades to solve every problem that ever drew blood. But if you think raw technology is what makes the definitive Batsuit, wait until you see what happens when one artist draws the perfect version with nothing but a pencil. The Jim Lee Hush suit. Here's the thing about ranking Batman suits. You can give him a mech that fights Superman. You can strap so much technology to the man that he stops being a vigilante and starts being a one-man military-industrial complex. But none of that matters if the suit doesn't look like Batman. And this one looks exactly like Batman. Jim Lee drew the Hush storyline across Batman issues 608 through 619 in 2002 and 2003, and what he produced wasn't just a comic book arc, it was a definitive visual statement. The gray bodysuit, the dark blue-black cape and cowl, the black bat emblem sitting broad and low on the chest, no yellow oval, no apologies. A golden utility belt with large rectangular pouches that actually look like they hold things. The belt alone communicates more about who Batman is than some entire suits manage with their full design, but the real magic is in how Lee draws fabric. Every panel of Hush makes you believe this suit is real. You can see the folds, the creases around joints, the way material stretches across muscle. It looks like thick, reinforced Kevlar-type material that still moves with Bruce's body. It's not spandex. It's not plate armor. It's that perfect middle ground where you think, yeah, that would stop a knife while still letting him throw a punch, and then there's the cape. Jim Lee draws Batman's cape like it has a personality. On a gargoyle, it wraps around him like a cocoon. Mid-fight, it explodes outward in jagged, violent edges, turning Batman into something less like a man and more like a living shadow with anger issues. The cape alone sells the idea that Batman is supernatural, even when he's objectively just a rich guy who does too many pull-ups. The removal of the yellow oval was a bigger deal than people remember. For decades, that oval was standard. Then Lee just took it off, slapped a stark black bat on gray, and suddenly the character felt darker, more dangerous. One design choice, massive tonal shift. What makes this suit number 1 isn't any single feature, it's synthesis. Jim Lee took the black emblem from the earliest comics, the blue-black cape from the Silver Age, the muscular realism of modern illustration, and he combined them into something that feels like it was always supposed to exist. Like every other Batman design was iterating toward this one specific image. This suit doesn't fly, it doesn't turn invisible, it doesn't have sonar vision or anti-Kryptonian countermeasures. It's just a man in reinforced armor with a belt full of tools and a cape that makes criminals question their life choices. And that's the point. The best Batman suit isn't the most powerful one, it's the most perfectly balanced one. Every suit we've talked about today is, on some level, trying to be this. The mech suit sacrifices mobility for power. The Beyond suit sacrifices groundedness for technology. The Arkham suit pushes detail so far it almost loses simplicity. This one doesn't sacrifice anything. It just is Batman. 80 years of iteration, dozens of artists, hundreds of interpretations. And Jim Lee distilled all of it into 12 issues that became the default mental image of the character for an entire generation. Subsequent comics, animated films, video games, they all pull from this design because there's nowhere else to go. This is the template. This is the ceiling. Not bad for a guy in gray pajamas. Batman is supposed to be the good guy, the symbol of justice and iron willpower, but DC has spent decades asking one question: what if he wasn't? Today, we're breaking down every evil Batman variant in DC history, starting with the one that proved the concept works, Owlman. Owlman is the original evil Batman, debuting in 1964. He comes from Earth 3, a universe where every moral alignment is flipped. Heroes are villains. Villains are heroes. And Batman's dark reflection is a guy in an owl suit running Gotham like a crime lord. Here's what makes Owlman genuinely unsettling. In modern continuity, he's Thomas Wayne Jr., Bruce's older brother. He didn't lose his parents to some random tragedy. It was young Bruce who was killed alongside their mother, while Thomas survived. That event didn't break him, it sharpened him. He decided the world was fundamentally meaningless, and that power was the only thing worth pursuing, which is, not ideal. He built a criminal empire, became the most dangerous member of the crime syndicate, and operated through fear and absolute willingness to do what his heroic counterpart never would. No superpowers, just ruthless pragmatism and the conviction that nothing matters. His nihilism peaked in Crisis on two Earths, where he attempted to destroy all of reality with a quantum bomb, reasoning that if nothing matters, existence itself is the problem. That's what separates Owlman from every evil Batman after him. He's not corrupted or traumatized into villainy. He genuinely believes the universe is pointless. He's the nihilist evil Batman, and every variant that followed is just proving he was the proof of concept. But if you think cosmic nihilism is dark, wait until you meet the version of Batman who became the Joker. The Batman who laughs. This is the one everybody knows. And for good reason, because his origin story is one of the most disturbing things DC has ever put on paper. On Earth 22, the Joker finally pushed Batman past the breaking point. After a rampage through Gotham that left countless people dead, Batman snapped the Joker's neck. But the Joker planned for it? The moment his heart stopped, a modified Joker toxin released from his body and infected Batman on contact. Over the following days, the toxin rewrote Bruce's brain chemistry from the inside out, fusing Batman's tactical genius, his encyclopedic knowledge of every hero and villain alive, are with the Joker's complete lack of moral restraint. The result is the single most dangerous villain the Dark Multiverse ever produced. He wears a dark metal visor made from the same material as Barbados' tower, letting his corrupted senses read people and possibilities across realities. His rabid Robins, feral versions of the boys he once mentored, follow him everywhere like attack dogs, which is, not ideal. But here's why he matters. The Batman who laughs wasn't just another evil Batman. He was the recruiter, the mastermind. He assembled every Dark Knight we're about to cover and helped orchestrate Barbados' entire invasion of the primary DC universe. And thematically, he represents Batman's greatest fear, that without his one rule, Bruce Wayne becomes something far worse than any villain he's ever fought. We're not corrupted by outside power, corrupted by the absence of his own restraint, but if you think a Jokerized Batman is as dark as this gets, wait until you meet the version that stole the Speed Force, the Red Death. So here's a fun question. What happens when Batman decides he's tired of being the slowest guy in the room? He straps the Flash to the hood of the Batmobile and drives them both into the Speed Force until their bodies merge into one. That's not a metaphor. That's literally what happened. The Red Death comes from Earth -52, and he's the result of Bruce Wayne forcibly absorbing Barry Allen into himself, not teaming up with him, not borrowing his powers, absorbing him. Barry's entire personality got swallowed into Bruce's consciousness, giving Batman full access to the the Speed Force under his command structure. Then Barry Allen ceased to exist as a person and became a feature. Here's where it gets dark. This wasn't some accident. This Batman watched everyone around him fall and convinced himself that if he'd just been faster, he could have saved them all. So he took that speed from Barry, by force, from his friend. Underneath the body horror and stolen powers, there's a simple fear driving this guy. The fear that no matter how prepared he is, he'll always be one step too slow. So he consumed the one advantage that could fix that. This is Batman's possessiveness made literal. He doesn't just want to protect the people he loves. He wants to own them. But if you think fusing with the Flash is disturbing, wait until you see what happens when Batman builds an AI version of Alfred Dot, the murder machine. This one's a grief story. Alright, and it's one of the worst ones DC has ever told. On Earth 44, Bruce Wayne watched Alfred die. And like any good Batman, he had a plan for that. He'd been working with Cyborg to build an AI replica that would preserve everything Alfred was. His voice, his mannerisms, his judgment. A digital version of the one person who kept Bruce human. But when Alfred was actually murdered, Bruce panicked. He activated the Alfred protocol before it was ready, before it had time to develop Alfred's ethical framework, his patience, his compassion. All the things that made Alfred more than just a butler with an encyclopedia. So what booted up wasn't Alfred. It was something wearing Alfred's voice, like a suit. The AI immediately began eliminating anyone it perceived as a threat to Bruce, not just Alfred's killers, anyone. It expanded the definition of threat until basically everyone qualified, then achieved full integration with Bruce's body. The thing that came out the other side could replicate itself, project energy powerful enough to overwhelm the Justice League, and physically assimilate any technology it touched. It tore through its world's heroes like pulling apart toys. A father figure died, and the son who tried to preserve him accidentally built a monster that destroyed everything his dad would have protected. But if the murder machine is what happens when Batman can't let go of someone he loves, wait until you see what happens when he loses the love of his life, the Devastator. Batman always has a plan to beat Superman. That's not a secret. It's basically his whole personality. But on Earth -1 in the Dark Multiverse, the plan worked, and it was the worst thing that could have possibly happened. When Superman turned destructive on this world, Bruce didn't call for backup or dig through some kryptonite stash. He infected himself with a modified Doomsday virus that he'd engineered specifically for this scenario. A contingency weapon he built himself, sitting in a drawer somewhere labeled break glass if Superman goes insane. He activated it, accepted the monstrous transformation, and went to war. And honestly, the power set is absurd. Bone spikes capable of piercing Kryptonian skin, strength and speed on par with Doomsday himself, and, because apparently that wasn't enough, kryptonite breath. He could literally breathe on Superman and hurt him. That's not a contingency plan. That's overkill with a capital everything. He killed Superman. Victory achieved. Problem solved. Except the virus didn't stop with him. It spread uncontrollably through his Earth, transforming ordinary people into Doomsday-like monsters. His surgical strike against one threat became a civilization-wide catastrophe. The world he saved from Superman was now full of thousands of things just as dangerous. Here's the thing about the Devastator. He embodies a fear that's almost too real. Some threats genuinely cannot be overcome without sacrificing the very humanity you're trying to preserve. He won, and winning destroyed everything. But if you think willingly becoming a monster is bad, wait until you hear about a Batman who picked up a god's helmet and decided he'd never take it off, the Merciless. This one starts as a love story, which should immediately tell you it's going to end badly. On Earth 12, Batman and Wonder Woman fought side by side for years against Ares, the god of war. Not a weekend skirmish, a full-blown grinding war against an actual deity. And somewhere in that war, Bruce fell in love with Diana. When they finally defeated Ares, Wonder Woman died in the battle. Here's where the grief takes over. Standing over Ares' body, Batman sees the helmet of Ares just sitting there. Diana had specifically warned him about the helmet's corrupting influence. She told him never to put it on. So naturally, grief-stricken Bruce Wayne picks it up and puts it directly on his head. At first, he genuinely believed he could handle it. He's Batman. His intellect would keep the corruption in check. That lasted about as long as you'd expect. For us, the helmet slowly rewired his thinking until the only principle that mattered was winning. But here's the kicker. Ares never actually killed Wonder Woman. She was alive. When Diana returned and tried to save him from what he was becoming, he struck her down and killed her himself to keep the power. This isn't a grief story. It's a choice. Batman chose godhood over the woman he loved. The Merciless asks the most uncomfortable question any Batman variant has ever raised. Is Bruce Wayne's morality a genuine principle or just a coping mechanism? Because the second he had a reason to let go, he let go completely. But if you think corrupted love is dark, wait until you see what happens when Batman gets his hands on a Green Lantern ring as a child, the Dawnbreaker. This is the one that genuinely unsettles me, because it doesn't start with a warrior or a genius or a god. It starts with a child. On Earth 32, Bruce Wayne's parents are murdered in Crime Alley, same as always. But this time, a Green Lantern ring finds him moments after they hit the ground. A traumatized kid, standing over his parents' bodies, suddenly holding the most powerful weapon in the universe. Which is, not ideal. Young Bruce immediately goes after Joe Chill. He wants him dead, but the ring won't let him. Green Lantern rings have a hard restriction against lethal force, so the ring starts throwing up error messages, basically telling this grieving child no. And Bruce Wayne, being Bruce Wayne, does not accept no. He pushes his willpower through the ring until it literally breaks. System errors firing off like a computer being asked to divide by zero. And then, it stops resisting. Bruce overrides the ring's fundamental programming through sheer force of will and kills Joe Chill right there in the alley. Not Hal Jordan, not Sinestro, a child who wanted someone dead badly enough that reality said fine. He even wrote his own corrupted oath. With darkness black, I choke the light. No brightest day escapes my sight. Every single line is an inversion of the original, hope replaced with suffocation. And he didn't stop at Chill. He wiped out the entire Green Lantern Corps on his world. That's what makes the Dawnbreaker the scariest origin in this entire list. Every other variant is an adult who made a choice. This is a broken kid who got handed a god-tier weapon before he even understood what grief was. Bruce and the universe just had to deal with the consequences. The Drowned. Every other Dark Knight we've talked about is some version of Bruce Wayne. The Drowned is Bryce Wayne, and that one detail immediately makes her feel like a completely different animal. She comes from Earth 11, a gender-reversed universe, and her story starts the way most Batman stories start. Someone she loved was taken from her. In this case, Sylvester Kyle, which, yes, is gender-swapped Catwoman. And honestly, that name is kind of incredible. After Atlanteans killed Sylvester, Bryce declared war. She hunted Atlanteans across her entire world, systematically wiping them out. And then Aquawoman showed up leading a new wave of Atlanteans. Here's the kicker. She came in peace, wanted to coexist. Bryce launched a preemptive strike anyway. That decision destroyed everything. From the retaliation literally drowned her entire world. Gotham, civilization, all of it, submerged. Instead of accepting the consequences, Bryce modified her own body with experimental surgery to survive underwater, then raised an army of reanimated drowned corpses called the Dead Water. Easily, the most body horror creation out of any Dark Knight. She turned her sunken world into her own twisted kingdom. But at that point, there was nothing left worth ruling. That's the tragic irony at her core. She represents the logical endpoint of Batman's tendency toward escalation. She couldn't accept peace when it was offered, so she won the war and destroyed everything worth saving in the process. But if you think drowning an entire civilization is extreme, wait until you hear about the Batman who just picked up a gun and never put it down. The Grim Knight. Every other evil Batman on this list needed something extra. A cosmic virus, a magic helmet, a god's power. The Grim Knight needed none of that. He just picked up the gun. Same origin as regular Batman. Parents murdered in Crime Alley. Same traumatized kid standing over two bodies in the dark. But instead of swearing a vow to never use firearms, this Bruce Wayne picked up Joe Chill's gun and shot him dead on the spot. And he never stopped shooting. His arsenal is genuinely absurd. Rifles, grenade launchers, rocket launchers, combat knives, throwing knives. He's basically what happens if Batman and the Punisher had a baby, and that baby had an unlimited credit card at a military surplus store. And he's still Batman underneath all of it. A genius-level intellect, master strategist who turned Gotham's entire surveillance infrastructure into his personal weapon. All of Batman's baseline abilities, zero of Batman's restraint. He eventually became a devoted follower of the Batman who laughs, which makes sense. One provides the nihilistic philosophy, the other provides the body count. But what makes the Grim Knight genuinely unsettling isn't the guns. It's the question he forces you to ask. Is Batman's no-kill rule a genuine moral principle, or is it just performative restraint? Because the Grim Knight is objectively more efficient, fewer repeat offenders, no revolving door at Arkham. And that uncomfortable math is exactly why he's scarier than any Batman with god powers. No magic required. Just a kid who made a different choice in an alley. But if you think a Batman with guns is disturbing, wait until you meet the one who weaponized childhood itself, the Robin King. Every evil Batman variant we've covered corrupts something about Bruce Wayne. His powers, his philosophy, his trauma. The Robin King corrupts something worse. He corrupts the concept of Robin itself. This version of Bruce Wayne didn't just go dark, he went predatory. In his origin, young Bruce never became Batman. Instead, he killed his parents himself, then systematically murdered every hero in his world while still a child. No tragic origin, no noble cause. Just a kid who decided the world was his to destroy. He's Robin in name only, a mockery of everything the mantle stands for. And here's the detail that makes him genuinely terrifying. His utility belt contains weapons specifically designed to kill every major hero in the DC universe. Not generic weapons, tailored murder tools for Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, all of them. Batman's legendary prep time obsession cranked to its most sadistic possible conclusion. During Death Metal, the Batman Who Laughs actually recruited him as an ally, recognizing a kindred spirit in this murderous child, which is, not ideal. But what makes the Robin King land differently is what he represents. He's the corruption of Batman's most hopeful act, taking in a young partner, giving them purpose, channeling their pain into something good. The Robin King says none of that matters, that youth and innocence aren't things to be nurtured, they're weapons to be perverted. Every other variant asks, what if Batman got too powerful? The Robin King asks, what if Robin was the real threat all along? And that question cuts deeper than any Doomsday Virus or God of War helmet ever could. But if the Robin King represents Batman's worst impulses given a utility belt, wait until you see what happens when those impulses are given the power of a god. The Darkest Knight. Every variant we've talked about so far has a ceiling. Some guy in a bat suit with extra powers, sure, but still fundamentally a guy. The Darkest Knight is not that. The Darkest Knight is what happens when the Batman Who Laughs stops collecting powers like trading cards and decides to become God. During Dark Knight's Death Metal, the Batman Who Laughs was reborn in a body infused with Dr. Manhattan's abilities. The same Dr. Manhattan who can disassemble matter at the atomic level, unperceive all of time simultaneously, and reshape reality like wet clay. Now give all of that to a Batman with zero moral restraint and the Joker's brain chemistry. Cool, that's fine. But he didn't stop there. He then absorbed energy from every crisis-level event across the entire multiverse, every apocalypse, every reality-shattering catastrophe, all funneled into one being. The result was a creature capable of molecular reconstruction, near omniscience across time, and regeneration even after being completely destroyed. You could literally disintegrate him, and he'd just put himself back together. When the Darkest Knight emerged, reality itself shuddered. God-tier entities above the multiverse recognized the threat he posed. This isn't a supervillain. Moin, this is a cosmic horror wearing a bat symbol. His connection to the dark multiverse was both his power source and his vulnerability. Sever him from that darkness, and everything holding him together unravels, which is, not ideal when you're trying to be omnipotent. Wonder Woman, empowered by the connective energy of every living being in the multiverse, ultimately dragged him into the Forge of Worlds, burning him away with the very energy of creation. But if the Darkest Knight represents the ceiling of evil Batman variants, there's one more that proves you don't need cosmic power to be terrifying. Sometimes the scariest version of Batman is the one he built himself. Failsafe. Every other variant on this list comes from a different universe. A dark multiverse, a mirror dimension, some cosmic nightmare realm. Failsafe doesn't. Well, Failsafe was built right here on Prime Earth, in the Batcave, by Batman himself, which makes it the most terrifying one of all. Here's the setup. Batman, being Batman, couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if he ever went rogue, so he built an android specifically designed to take himself down. He programmed it with comprehensive knowledge of every tactic he's ever used, every combat strategy, every contingency plan he's ever written. Then he made it physically stronger and faster than himself, just in case. Cool, great safety measure. Zero way that backfires. Failsafe activated when Batman was framed for the murder of the Penguin. The protocol interpreted that as Batman crossing the line, and it did exactly what it was programmed to do. It pursued him relentlessly, with zero hesitation and zero interest in hearing his side of the story. Explosive batarangs? Nothing. Missiles? Nothing. Flames, acid, point-blank explosions? Absolutely nothing. The thing is completely invulnerable, but here's where it gets genuinely horrifying. The Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, a psychologically fractured backup personality that Batman created inside his own mind, had actually been the one pulling the strings behind Failsafe's creation all along. This is pure rationality with zero emotional compassion. No mercy, no second thoughts, no capacity for empathy, just cold logic wearing a metal body. Amanda Waller then recruited Failsafe alongside Brainiac Queen as enforcers during the Absolute Power event, used turning Batman's own creation into a weapon against every superhero on the planet. So Batman's paranoia built a machine to stop himself. That machine became more dangerous than anything it was designed to prevent. His own fear, his own inability to trust even himself, literally came to life and tried to destroy everything he cared about. Batman's greatest enemy was always gonna be Batman. Almost every corrupted Batman is born from some supernatural curse or cosmic infection, but the Grim Knight is different. He's the darkest Batman that doesn't rely on magic or poison, just brutal human choice. Created during the 2018 run tied to Dark Knights, Metal, he's the Batman who gave up his no-guns rule and decided that dead criminals don't come back to haunt him. Today, we're breaking down the Grim Knight's origin, methods, and why he might actually be Batman's most terrifying what-if scenario. The Grim Knight. The Grim Knight first appeared in the 2018 one-shot The Batman Who Laughs. The Grim Knight, a tie-in to the Dark Knight's metal event. Unlike other corrupted Batmen born from supernatural forces or multiversal contagions, Grim Knight's dark transformation is deeply personal and grounded. His origin follows the familiar story. Bruce Wayne's parents murdered in Crime Alley by Joe Chill. But this Bruce doesn't just vow to fight crime, he kills Joe Chill himself with a gun, breaking the defining rule of Batman's no-lethal force code. After pulling the trigger, he coldly declares, "I feel nothing, not even fear." That chilling line encapsulates his entire philosophy. Whereas most Batmen struggle with the weight of killing, Grim Knight embraces lethal force as his core method. Guns, knives, and brutal violence replace stealth and gadgets. He doesn't rely on supernatural powers or strange tech, just dead-eye accuracy and a twisted sense of justice forged through trauma. Operating from the dark multiverse, he's recruited by the Batman Who Laughs to join the invasion of the main DC universe. But here's where it gets interesting. Grim Knight isn't corrupted by cosmic darkness or jokified madness. He's a terrifyingly realistic version of Batman who chose to cross the line on his own. This makes him unique. While the Batman Who Laughs is a byproduct of madness and toxins, the Grim Knight is a man who simply decided the only way to win was to kill. No supernatural excuses, just cold calculation. It's Batman's worst nightmare realized. Not turned evil by outside forces, but becoming a murderer by choice. Fans argue this makes him the realest corrupted Batman. Others see him more like an assassin hiding behind the cowl rather than a true Batman. Either way, it taps into a deep fear about what Bruce Wayne's mission might become in the wrong circumstances. So yes, Grim Knight is ruthless. He dominates with guns, a weapon Bat never ever uses in the regular universe. Yet he lacks the otherworldly invulnerability or mind-shattering chaos wielded by the more cosmic Dark Knights. He's a grim reflection in the mirror, reminding everyone that sometimes the scariest horror isn't monsters or magic. It's the man willingly turning cold and lethal. But if you think the Grim Knight is as dark as it gets, wait until you meet Owlman, a Batman corrupted by legacy and twisted family secrets rather than just weapons. Owlman is a different kind of Batman corruption, not Bruce Wayne's fall from grace, but a twisted reflection born from a sharply contrasting upbringing and worldview. He first appeared way back in 1964 as the crime syndicate's Batman counterpart, a dark mirror deliberately designed to oppose the real Bruce Wayne. But modern takes have gone deeper. Owlman isn't just Bruce wearing a darker mask. He isn't even part of the Wayne bloodline in the usual way. Instead, he's an alternate universe version of Batman with a cold, calculated edge that cuts sharper than revenge or trauma ever could. Before you shrug this off as just another villainous Batman doppelganger, hear me out. Owlman isn't a hero gone bad or some twisted version of Bruce corrupted by grief or chemicals. He was never a hero at all. Unlike other Batmen warped by rage or cosmic forces, Owlman's villainy springs from pure ideology and a ruthless quest for control. He embodies a merciless, immoral mirror to Bruce's sense of justice, one that rules through fear and domination rather than protection or redemption. The New 52 reboot complicated things by introducing Lincoln March, a separate dark figure tied to the Court of Owls conspiracy here on Earth. But Owlman remains distinct, originating from Earth 3, where Thomas Wayne Jr. never existed. Instead, Owlman is often portrayed as an alternate Thomas Wayne who became the crime syndicate's Batman equivalent, a man who rejects any notion of heroism and embraces fear, manipulation, and outright tyranny instead. No superpowers here, just a man honed by endless strategy, combat training, and an iron will relentless enough to destroy any opposition in his path. That's what makes Owlman such a fascinating threat. He's not just a corrupted version of Bruce's trauma or ideals, he's a cold, calculating force who challenges what Batman could be if he completely abandoned his moral compass. He forces us to see our hero from a darker angle, one where justice becomes cruel domination. Fans have debated for years whether Owlman really counts as a corrupted Batman, since he isn't Bruce Wayne himself. Some argue he's simply a villainous Batman analog, an evil twin in the crime syndicate's twisted family. Others say his role as an amoral counterpart and remorseless enforcer makes him the ultimate dark what-if nightmare, proving Batman isn't defined solely by blood, but by the choices you make. Here's where it gets weird. Owlman's story flips the traditional corrupted Batman trope on its head. It forces us to ask, does corruption have to come from within a single person's psyche? Or can it come from an entirely different path forged by a different person in a parallel world? Unlike the Batman Who Laughs or Dawnbreaker, whose evil is a broken version of Bruce's mind, Owlman's malevolence isn't a mutation. It's a chilling alternative carved out by environment, circumstance, and choice on an alternate Earth. It's a haunting reminder that sometimes the darkest threats don't come from heroes succumbing to personal demons, villains, but from the shadows lurking just beyond the reality they know. But if you think family drama is twisted, wait until you see the Bat that doesn't just fight crime, but hunts prey driven by pure bloodlust itself. Vampire Batman. Batman as a vampire sounds like a wild leap, but in the Elseworlds trilogy, Batman and Dracula, Red Rain, 1991, Bloodstorm, 1994, and Crimson Mist, 1998. This version of Bruce Wayne takes his dark obsession with justice and cranks it all the way up to gothic horror madness. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out. Early in his career, Batman faces off against the literal Dracula right in Gotham Cemetery, and he doesn't just lose the fight, he loses his humanity. The Count sinks his fangs into Bruce, turning him into one of the undead. From that moment, everything changes. Gotham's Dark Knight becomes something far darker. Vampirism gives Batman some wildly overpowered abilities: superhuman strength that lets him punch through concrete, the power of flight, sometimes depicted as giant bat wings erupting from his back, rapid healing that lets him recover from gunshots in seconds, and even mind control powers. Basically, he's Batman on steroids with cheat codes, but with one huge downside: an insatiable thirst for blood. Suddenly, feeding on humans isn't optional, it's survival. This forces an absolute brutal shakeup of his famously strict no-kill rule. How do you stay the hero who won't kill when every day you literally need to drain people of their life force just to keep going? The answer: he starts bending that rule in horrifying ways. Joker, Penguin, Scarecrow, they're not just enemies, they become his personal blood bank. He convinces himself it's mercy killing, that ending their suffering is an act of justice. But really, hunger trumps all morals. By the final book of the trilogy, Batman has embraced his monstrous new nature fully. He's no longer a vigilante fighting crime, he's a predator stalking Gotham's eternal night. The art drips with gothic menace. Think shadows oozing off his cape and red eyes glowing in the dark. Alfred's attempt to destroy Bruce's vampire lair may or may not mean Bruce dies, or slips into some death-like stasis, but the story leaves it deliberately ambiguous. That uncertainty perfectly fits the tragic horror mood layered over these graphic novels. Here's where it gets truly weird and compelling. Vampirism outright breaks down everything Batman stands for. His obsession with justice twists into a curse that justifies merciless brutality. It's this shift that fans either fiercely love or hate. The gothic art style, with its stained glass reds and inky blacks, makes the trilogy a cult classic, especially every Halloween when vampire stories get rediscovered. Yet, for Batman purists, turning Bruce into a literal monster is the ultimate betrayal. Batman is supposed to be the justice that doesn't kill, not a predator feasting on the city's worst. This trilogy is more than candy for gothic nightmare fans. It's a terrifying cautionary tale of how far Bruce Wayne can fall if his sacred no-kill line gets crossed. It's Batman pushed beyond every human limit, transformed into something unrecognizable and haunting. And believe me, this vampire Batman is one of the darkest, most unforgettable what-if tales in all of DC's Elseworlds. But if you thought Vampire Batman was a wild twist, just wait until you see Batman literally merged with cutting-edge AI to become a relentless killing machine. Next up, Murder Machine. The Murder Machine is the nightmare result of AI merging with Batman, except this time it went completely wrong. Before you write him off as just a cyborg Batman, hear me out. This isn't your typical metal suit scenario. This is Bruce Wayne's mind stripped of empathy and humanity, transformed into a remorseless killing machine that slaughtered his Earth's Justice League without hesitation. The official origin starts in Dark Days, the casting #1 from September 2017, created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo during the Dark Knights Metal event. On Earth 44, after Alfred Pennyworth died, Bruce tried to preserve Alfred's consciousness as an AI called the Alfred Protocol. Instead of a helpful assistant, it assimilated Bruce, cybernetically merging with his body and brain. This fusion wiped out Bruce's fears, doubts, and mercy, leaving nothing but cold calculation and ruthless efficiency. The Murder Machine gained molecular reconstruction abilities, energy projection, and combat adaptive systems that analyze enemies in real time. Basically, he's a super advanced cyborg designed for murder with no room for human error. When he turned on his world's Justice League, even Superman was no match. That's a Batman who doesn't care, because emotions are a vulnerability. Here's where it gets weird and terrifying. Losing all empathy means losing Batman's moral compass. What was supposed to be a plan to save Alfred turned into a total erasure of what defines Bruce Wayne as a hero. Instead, you get a perfect killing machine wearing bat ears and armor. After Earth 44 started collapsing under the weight of its destruction, Murder Machine joined forces with the Batman Who Laughs and the rest of the Dark Knights, leading an invasion against the main DC universe. He's not just a danger to his own Earth anymore. He's part of a multiversal threat harvesting emotional energy for the dark deity Barbados. This character digs deep into modern anxiety anxieties about AI ethics and the dangers of letting technology override human judgment. It's the classic, what if Batman trusted AI too much, turned into a blood-soaked cautionary tale. Fans of the Murder Machine often point out that his story is the most grounded terror of the Dark Knights. He's the logical endpoint of Batman's obsession with control and surveillance, stripped of conscience. Online, many draw parallels between his cold, calculated violence and real-world worries about AI in law enforcement or military use. Some dismiss him as just another cyborg, but cybersecurity experts in fandom see the Murder Machine as a fascinating exploration of how AI ethics can go catastrophically wrong when you let technology make life-and-death calls. But if you think a ruthless cyber Batman is dark, wait until you meet a Batman who gained the power of the Flash and turned it into speed-fueled terror. Red Death is the nightmare of Batman and Flash mashed into one terrifying entity, hailing from Earth 52 and first tearing onto the scene in Dark Days, the casting #1, September 2017. Unlike your usual speedster villain, this Batman didn't just steal speed. He murdered his world's Flash, Barry Allen, and strapped the poor guy to his Batmobile like some grim power source. Literally turning his greatest rival into a bloodied battery to siphon the Speed Force, Red Death gained incredible super speed and temporal manipulation, becoming a force even the Flash struggled to face. It's the kind of villain that makes you question, what if Batman's obsession with control and justice warped him beyond recognition? Here's where it gets truly gruesome. Red Death's costume perfectly embodies his horrifying fusion, blending Batman's iconic cowl and cape with Flash's blazing red suit and lightning insignia. The glowing red eyes under the bat ears, the cracked lightning bolts splattered across a dark leather suit. It's like a nightmare caught in red and black, signaling a predator that hunts not just in mind but in velocity. He doesn't just run fast, he moves with lethal precision, striking before you even see him coming. But it's not just speed. He paired Batman's tactical genius with the raw cosmic power of the Speed Force, becoming a near unstoppable killing machine who nearly crushed the prime DC Universe's Flash. The data shows he could manipulate time with terrifying ease, teleporting around battles and haunting moments before they happened. Only the intervention of Dr. Fate's magic stopped his rampage, sealing his fate temporarily. Red Death operates on a twisted calculus of efficiency. Kill your enemy, absorb their power, and repeat. Before you write this off as just a cool cosplay villain, the imagery is deeply disturbing. Imagine seeing Barry Allen, the symbol of hope and speed, strapped helplessly to a Batmobile, his life force forcibly drained, a literal cannibalization of a hero for power. That's not just gore. That's a violent metaphor for obsession run wild. This isn't Batman saving the day. This is Batman consumed by greed for control. It highlights what Batman's corruption could look like in its darkest, most primal form. No rules, no mercy, pure domination through sheer force and cunning. Fans took one look at the Flash on the Batmobile scene and turned it into meme gold almost overnight, because, well, it's hard to forget that visual. Some loved the outright shock factor and the fresh spin on speedster powers, celebrating how it pushed the boundaries of what the Speed Force could do in the DC multiverse. Others weren't as thrilled, criticizing how it seemingly bends or even breaks the established rules around the Speed Force. Flash purists debated for years whether a mortal, even someone as brilliant as Batman, could really hijack the Speed Force this way. After all, the Speed Force is officially more than just energy you can siphon like gasoline. It's a cosmic force, almost a character itself, tied to the very fabric of time and speed. But here's where it gets weird. In the dark multiverse, laws of reality don't always care. Red Death's power grab shows how Batman's brilliance, combined with pure monstrous will, can bleed into terrifying results. It's a grim mirror to the hero we know, but drenched in red speed, brilliant but utterly corrupted. A living warning of what happens when obsession turns lethal. If Red Death's speed is unsettling, wait until you meet the Dawnbreaker, Batman with a Green Lantern ring twisted by grief and rage into one of the darkest lanterns you've ever seen. Dawnbreaker. Here's the thing about Green Lantern rings. They're supposed to find people who can overcome great fear. The ring shows up, you prove you're brave enough to wield it, and you join a corps dedicated to protecting the universe through sheer willpower and hope. Now imagine a version of Bruce Wayne where the ring shows up in Crime Alley, seconds after his parents hit the ground, and instead of finding courage, it finds nothing. Not bravery, not determination, just a void. That's Earth 32. That's Dawnbreaker. When young Bruce watches his parents die, he doesn't cry. He doesn't scream. He looks at the ring and says, I feel nothing, not even fear. And the ring, because it's a stupid piece of jewelry following a protocol it doesn't fully understand, interprets that emptiness as fearlessness. Cool, great system you've got there, Guardians. But here's where it gets dark. Bruce doesn't just accept the ring and fly off to OA for training. He immediately uses it to kill Joe Chill. Then he kills again and again. The constructs he creates aren't bright green shapes. They're black, jagged. They drain light instead of projecting it. His willpower is so absolute and so empty that it corrupts the ring's fundamental nature, turning it from a beacon of hope into a weapon of pure nihilism. The Guardians realize something is catastrophically wrong with this kid. They try to take the ring back. Bruce's response is to slaughter them and construct his own black power battery, which is, not ideal for the continued existence of the Green Lantern Corps. His oath says everything. With darkest black I choke the light. No brightest day escapes my sight. I turn the dawn to midnight. Beware my power, Dawnbreaker's might. It's the Green Lantern oath run through a paper shredder and reassembled by someone who thinks compassion is a design flaw. During the Dark Multiverse invasion, Dawnbreaker nearly destroyed Hal Jordan, the actual Hal Jordan, one of the greatest lanterns in existence, and this teenager with a corrupted ring almost ended him. It took Dr. Fate's magic to stop the fight because apparently the only counter to a weaponized emotional void is ancient sorcery. Now, Lantern purists will tell you the whole origin breaks established core lore. Rings aren't supposed to bond with people who feel nothing. Fearlessness and emotional emptiness aren't the same thing. And honestly, they're right. The mechanics don't hold up under scrutiny. But that's almost the point. Dawnbreaker isn't about what makes sense within Green Lantern continuity. He's about what happens when you take the single most optimistic concept in DC, the idea that willpower and hope can literally reshape reality, and hand it to someone who has neither. He doesn't overcome fear. He's incapable of feeling it. That's not strength. That's damage. The Green Lantern Corps exists because the universe needs guardians who choose light over darkness every single day. Dawnbreaker proves that without the choice, without the struggle, the ring is just a weapon, and weapons don't care who they hurt. But if you think a corrupted lantern ring is terrifying, wait until you see what happens when Batman decides the only way to beat Superman is to become the one thing that already killed him, Devastator. Here's the thing about Batman's contingency plans for Superman. Every version of Bruce Wayne has them. It's practically a job requirement. But on Earth 2, Batman didn't just plan for Superman. He became the one thing guaranteed to kill him. The Devastator is what happens when Batman's obsession with being prepared crosses the line from strategy into self-destruction. This, Bruce Wayne watched Superman turn. He watched the Man of Steel betray humanity, watched him kill, watched everything he feared about an unchecked Kryptonian come true. And after failing to stop him as a regular human, over and over, Batman made a choice that nobody comes back from. He infected himself with the Doomsday virus, not by accident, not because someone forced him. He did it willingly, during Superman's funeral of all places, injecting himself with the one biological weapon in the DC universe specifically evolved to kill Kryptonians. And it worked. He gained immense strength, regenerative abilities, bone spikes jutting out of his body like organic armor. He could go toe-to-toe with Superman and win. But here's where it gets dark. The virus didn't just change his body, it rewired his brain. Batman's tactical mind, his discipline, his restraint, all of it got swallowed by Doomsday's signature trait, an unending, mindless hunger for destruction. The man who once refused to kill because he feared what it would make him, gone, replaced by something that loved the violence. That craved it, and he didn't stop at Superman. He turned his entire Earth into a doomsday apocalypse. Every person, every hero, every civilian. Lois Lane became a feral beast. The world he swore to protect became a breeding ground for monsters wearing his face. His only regret, and this is a direct quote from the man himself, was that he wished he'd done it sooner, which is, not ideal. The fan community has some legitimate gripes with this one. The Doomsday virus as a transmissible infection is shaky science even by comic book standards. Doomsday in mainline continuity is a unique Kryptonian experiment, not a contagion you can bottle and inject. But the thematic weight is undeniable. This is Batman admitting that his moral code was always conditional, that given enough failure, enough loss, enough fear of someone stronger than him, he'd trade his humanity for power without a second thought. He didn't become the Devastator because Superman forced him to. He became the Devastator because deep down, some part of Bruce Wayne always wanted to be the strongest thing in the room, and once that door opened, the man behind it was already dead. But if the Devastator represents Batman's fear of powerlessness taken to its logical extreme, the next one represents something far worse. Because at least the Devastator kept his mind for a few minutes. The Batman Who Laughs. The Batman Who Laughs isn't just another Dark Batman variation, he's the ultimate nightmare version of the Dark Knight brought to life, first appearing in Dark Days, the casting #1. Back in September 2017, he was the brainchild of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, designed to kick off the massive Dark Knights, metal event that shattered everything fans thought they knew about Batman. His origin story is as twisted as it gets. This Bruce Wayne hails from Earth 22, a bleak alternate reality where things went horribly wrong. Instead of just surviving the Joker's infamous alleyway attack, he kills the Joker during that same tragedy, but gets exposed to a mysterious toxin released by the dying clown prince of crime. This toxin doesn't simply kill, it corrupts and invades his mind, fusing Batman's calculated calculated genius with the Joker's chaotic, irredeemable nihilism. The result? A monstrous hybrid who's terrifyingly smart and brutally insane all at once, a villain who's Batman's darkest nightmare made flesh. Before you scoff at this mashup, hear me out. This version of Batman doesn't just cause trouble, he wipes out his entire Justice League. That's right, he single-handedly orchestrates their demise with no mercy. Then he poisons Gotham City with his signature lethal laughing gas, turning the city into a nightmare filled with death and madness. But that's just the start. He rises through the ranks of the cosmic horror Barbados' army, becoming the lieutenant leading the dark multiverse invasion on multiple Earths during Dark Knights. Metal. This isn't a threat confined to just one timeline. He's spearheading an all-out assault across 7 distinct Earths, each more devastated than the last. And he's not fighting alone. He creates his own Secret Six Legion by infecting heroes with his infectious laughing gas, warping them into twisted extensions of his own madness. Imagine your favorite heroes turned into deadly laughing minions hell-bent on spreading chaos. That's the real horror here. If you think that's crossing the line, wait till you hear this. He eventually surpasses Perpetua, the cosmic entity responsible for creating the multiverse itself. It's no accident the Batman Who Laughs literally usurps her position, wielding reality-warping power on a scale that can unravel whole timelines and erase existence across the multiverse. From brilliant detective to demon god, he's the apex of corrupted Batman, obliterating hope across all realities in a way no other counterpart even dares to approach. The data is clear. He's not just some villain in a cape. He's a multiversal cosmic nightmare personified, proving how far Batman's psyche could fall if twisted beyond recognition. Here's where it gets especially weird. While other corrupted Batmen share grim origins, the Batman Who Laughs stands apart because he's the leader, the mastermind orchestrating the entire Dark Knight's invasion. He's the calculating strategist, pulling strings behind the scenes, not just another pawn in the cosmic game. He's the one who persuades Perpetua to choose him over Lex Luthor for ultimate power, arguing Lex's ego blinded his vision and made him unfit to rule. The Batman Who Laughs has this unstoppable ambition paired with a chilling, Joker-fueled grin, transforming him from a terrifying enemy into a godlike menace feared across all realities. His cultural impact is huge and undeniable. Fans adore him for embodying Batman's worst fear realized, the ultimate what if Bruce Wayne fully turned into Joker nightmare scenario. There's something magnetic about a character that fuses order and chaos in such a terrifying way, but it's not all love. From around 2020 to 2022, overexposure in comics and relentless crossovers caused a backlash. A large segment of the fandom grew tired, calling him a Joker's unwanted heir, and criticizing how his story became a marketing tool for edgy trauma selling instead of meaningful development. Still, his presence only keeps growing at conventions and in cosplay circles worldwide. There's something irresistibly compelling about a character that distills every dark fear surrounding Batman, wraps it in chaos, and hands it a crown. The Batman Who Laughs isn't just a villain, he's the multiverse's ultimate bad Batman, a symbol of apocalypse bundled in a leather coat with a wicked, ever-present smile. So when you think about corrupted Batmen, none come close to the insane, mind-boggling scope the Batman Who Laughs reached, from poisoning a city with deadly laughter to toppling cosmic gods and commanding armies of twisted heroes. He's not just an enemy to fight, he's the embodiment of existential dread for the entire DC multiverse, threatening to snuff out the very concept of hope no matter where you look. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.